righty. Soy, you have 2 minutes.
Intro? Yeah, I'll be faster than that. So, yeah, the stats show that the overwhelming majority of political violence is committed by the right wing, but I wouldn't attribute all of this to rhetoric. I think many people need extreme circumstances or mental illness in their life to want to risk everything and think that their violence will have substantial impact. It's also kind of silly that we talk about political violence in America as some sort of like major thing when you can look at, I don't know, the Troubles during Ireland or any other political violence where it becomes a part of everyday life with paramilitaries. But to be fair, we're still gonna, centralize this to America, and I think that ultimately, if we want to look at whose rhetoric is more harmful, it's undeniably also the right. Democrat politicians, again and again, will try to build bridges and condemn violence, while Republicans, especially Donald Trump, will deflect, turn up the temperature, and even pardon those who commit political violence on his behalf, calling to defeat the enemy within, the Democrats, the extremist party, or in some cases, the party of pedophiles. So I think the rhetoric and blame is incredibly one-sided.
All right, John and Paul.
All right. Once again, I just want to thank everyone for being here tonight and everyone who's watching. And tonight's debate hinges on whoever can pin the most blame on the opposing mainstream political party. And I never thought I'd have to debate violence against the party of death, riots, and abortion, but here I am defending what I believe to be the obvious answer to the question. Now, due to the left's tendency to misclassify and misrepresent political violence, I'll be extra clear on the framework for the debate morally and definitionally. Violence is the behavior involving physical force to cause harm or destruction. And when that violence is political, it is set to achieve certain political ends. When we analyze which party is more culpable for the presence of political violence, we must look at the specific actions taken by the mainstream party that are plausibly linked to the occurrence of those political violent actions. The more impactful, damaging, and persistent that political violence is, the more culpable the mainstream party is as a result, assuming you could properly link the party to the violence. With that said, the core distinction here between the two parties is clear. Almost all violence from the right comes from the fringe right and is always condemned, whereas almost all violence from the left comes from the overwhelmingly present factions with strong ideological backing and influence in the mainstream Democratic Party, which typically normalizes, excuses, or rationalizes violence. The violence from the fringe right cannot be linked to the Republican Party since, again, their ideology is never taken seriously by the party, and such violence is always condemned. The violence from the left is strongly associated with the rhetoric, ideology, and the movement of the mainstream left, which is culpable for fostering a climate for such violence. In modern U.S. history, the largest sustained political violence comes from the left, in which the mainstream persistently tries to exclude reports of discussion or political violence, namely the 2020 BLM and Antifa riots, which caused $2+ billion of destructions, dozens of murders, and thousands of injured officers. Kamala Harris, as a response, promoted the Minnesota Freedom Fund that bailed out rioters, and major news outlets describe the arson as looting as justice, with many left-wing academics and activists openly arguing that property destruction isn't violence. The aggressive and persistent references to Republicans as fascist Nazis and literally Hitler also does not help. If you think it is good to kill Hitler, which it is, then it is good to kill Republicans. Maybe that's why Charlie Kirk's assassin etched in Antifa slogans and catch fascist on the bullet that he used to shoot him with. So the distinction is clear. If a pro-life Jewish conservative walks onto Columbia University, he's at risk of being assaulted.
You almost done?
Yes, this will be last line. If a pro-life Jewish conservative walks on Columbia University, he is at risk of being assaulted. Whereas if a general Democrat walks on Hillsdale College, he's at risk at losing a debate. So I think the framework for this is very clear. Fringe right is responsible for most of the violence from the right, whereas the mainstream left is responsible for building the climate that creates these large-scale violent acts.
All right. Thank you very much. Andrew Wilson.
Shouldn't the leftists go first? So it's left, right, left, right.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually. I was just going in order of introduction.
I mean, not to tell you how to run your own show.
Oh, no, you're good.
So you know, I'm
better
at it than you. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Vince.
Yeah, I got you. So who's more responsible for political violence in America? The evidence shows the right commits more of it, but the difference isn't just in the numbers. It's in the response. When violence comes from the left, Democrats condemn it outright. When it comes from the right, Republicans deflect, blame mental illness, and ignore their own rhetoric. That imbalance matters. One party takes responsibility, the other refuses. When a party won't own the consequences of its rhetoric, it becomes indirectly more responsible for the violence that follows.
All righty. Thank you for the very succinct opener. And Andrew.
Yep.
That's it. Okay.
Yeah. Very succinct. To the point.
Yeah, I guess. All right. Um, so all of the claims from our opponents are going to hinge on studies that I guarantee you none of them have read. The soy pill likely will actually tell you the truth about that. He's pretty good about that. He'll probably actually tell you, you know what? I didn't actually read any of these. Vince Wilson will not. He'll pretend that he did, but he didn't read any of them. Let me tell you how I know that. I know that because of all the claims as I've gone through the two which they focus on, which are from the Cato Institute, and then the second one, which is from a specific project that an Antifa member is in charge of. The first claim is that the right is responsible for 6 times as many terror deaths compared to the left, and that's according to Cato. That's what they focus on. And the truth, Cato only focuses on deaths from terrorism and has glaring omissions, which put the entire study in question, which includes the fact that Michael Renault is Portland Antifa, and he's on camera saying, well, that he is. So anyway, Daryl Brooks, who's a noted black supremacist, if in case you guys don't know this, killed 6, all white, injured 70. Comments on whites. As we get into the study, guess what? Not included, even though there's a political motive. We can compare this. So, by the way, the Atlanta spa shooting, this is with Robert Aaron Long, listed as right wing, killed 8. But what's really funny about this is if we compare it with Sutherland Springs, where 26 are dead, it's not included at all. So every time I make a comparison to when the motivation was pretty clearly left wing, they just don't include them. So what I need to see is, one, I need to see in their studies that the 2020 Summer of Love, baby, actually is counted as a left-wing violence. It's not going to be, which skews the numbers. And also, I have an exhaustive, almost exhaustive list of left-wingers who have conducted political violence who are not included in any of these studies. Example, I think his name is Mauricio Garcia, who killed 8. The ADL disputed that was even politically motivated. Vance Bolter, this is another one. He explicitly told reporters that it wasn't due to pro-lifer Trump that the congresswoman, that he shot this congresswoman because he was anti-abortion.
It's so funny because he's using 2 studies that I didn't use.
Or classified.
He's really jumping ahead of himself.
And so here's what's going to happen. Every study you fuckers cite, you dishonest fucking leftist scumbag cite, I'm going to pull it up. And I'm going to go through and I'm going to look for these names. And if those names aren't there, they're not cited in there, I'm going to know that you're a bunch of gutless fucking liars, didn't read your own shit, because that's what always happens, right? Every single time. You're a bunch of filthy, gutless, lying sons of bitches, and you're not going to get away with it today. We're going to go through your dumbass studies, and we're just going to look at the classification. We're going to find out that when it's reclassified correctly and we take out, prison violence from prison Nazi gangs, that, it turns out not quite as lopsided as we've been led to believe. So, yeah, I'm happy to get into this debate. And John, it's nice to meet you. And let's stomp these fucking tarts.
All righty, gentlemen, the floor is yours.
Just first off, I want to say, Andrew, you jumped ahead of yourself a little bit there. I'm not using the Cato Institute. I'm not using the ADL. I'm using the Center for Strategic and International Studies, which is the one that kind of
the
maps
CSIS.
the CSIS one that maps on pretty.
I got them in front of me.
You got them up? Yeah, okay. And that one maps up to the DOJ one as well, which is taken down, right?
Yeah. Would you like to go through the CSIS and look at all of the disputes and problems that I have with the CSIS?
We can, sure, but I would actually ask you to affirmatively show me any sort of study that shows that the right wing is overwhelmingly not the committers of violence. You can poke holes in anything, and I understand that, hey, this didn't include that, and you could have up to thousands of examples, but if there are thousands of examples of violence and your little discrepancies are well within the margin of error, unless you can provide me a study that shows that the right wing is not committing more violence, I'm sorry, I'm not going to play this doesn't count because I don't want it. So I'd love to see your study. First,
we need to make sure that we classify these things correctly. Can we classify what you and I, or what we and your side would consider to be right or left wing, and what would fit in that category, so that we can determine if those people who fit in that category are conducting violence or not?
I bet if we get into the definition game, we're going to be here for 2 hours, but we can try.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty important that we understand that if there's people here who are being included who you don't even consider left wing or right wing, that they probably shouldn't be included to begin with.
Yeah, like for
And by the
example, a couple
way,
of couple of the examples
hang on,
you brought
hang
up,
on,
like
hang
the
on,
black
let me
supremacists.
finish. Almost
Sorry,
done. Almost done.
okay, go
I'll
ahead.
toss it back over. The biggest problem that you have with your frontal argument here is you're saying, on the positive front, if you don't show me studies, even though you're already disagreeing with the classifications in these studies, which are already out here, that somehow that means that we lose. That's absurd.
That's not what I'm saying.
I'm disagreeing with these classifications to begin with. And if you could show me the equivalent of your high profile leadership getting shot and your president's almost getting murdered, I'd love to see it. But your studies, the studies which are used for this positive claim that right wingers are doing it more, are very suspect.
Right. I'm not saying that if you can't give me a study that shows that left wingers do it more, that you lose the debate. I'm saying that I have a classification that I mostly agree with that's used here. And if you have a different classification, or if you heavily disagree with this classification, I would love to see some evidence that uses your classification and also shows that left wingers do it more. For example, if you were able to take the numbers out of this study and say, well, actually, I classify this differently, we can compare those two numbers, then ultimately, like, I don't know, drop a new graph, like, sure, I could use that would be fine, but otherwise I don't think there's a point in going through and saying, well, I have a minutia of problems with this classification, therefore, especially when in my intro I said specifically, if we want to get into the rhetoric and what is actually causing it, I think that's much more important, but we could do either one.
Well, the first thing that we would need to do is create these classifications to make these determinations, to make sure you even agree with them yourselves. Why is that so important? Because if your fucking assholes are going to be running around telling people that the right is committing much more political violence than the left, and then banking on studies as the thing which proves this for you, then you're going to need to demonstrate that first and foremost.
I think you ought to demonstrate how Darrell Brooks, who killed Sticks, was it was a politically motivated attack. Can you elaborate that for me, Andrew?
What's that?
Can you elaborate how Darrell Brooks, who killed Six, was a politically motivated attack? You mentioned him in your opening.
Oh no, I was making a comparison about how they don't make these classifications correctly by their own rules in that particular study. I'd have to bring both those studies up for the comparison, but that was the point I was making.
So Darrell Brooks' example is you just don't know nothing about that case, then, right?
Can you repeat back what I just said, please?
I want you to answer mine. You clearly,
I know, but I need you to repeat back what I just said so that I know that you know what I just said. What did I just say?
You were trying to mention in your opening how these are glaring contradictions, but the problem
I didn't say that
is
they're contradictions. You're a fucking idiot. What I said was that if you make a comparison, this thing over here is left-wing violence. This other thing that's exactly like left-wing violence is not left-wing violence. It's omitted, right? Then what I'm asking is that if we're going to make these types of comparisons, let's create a classification for what we consider left-wing to be, what left-wing violence is, and then see if I can go through an extensive list of left-wing violence and make sure that these things were actually included, because if not, we have glaring omissions. Do you agree?
Okay, and you mentioned Darrell Brooks.
Yes, as a comparison.
How is Darrell Brooks? Hold on, no, Andrew, answer my question. You mentioned it. How is that an example of left-wing extremism? Please elaborate.
I wasn't saying that it was. I was making a comparison that we can bring up all of these different names so that we can make a determination on if they are actually included as being left-wing violence, not left-wing violence, right-wing violence, not right-wing violence.
And you use Darrell Brooks. So answer the question then.
What's the question?
Why did you use Darrell Brooks as a form of left-wing extremism? Elaborate on the case. Tell me about the case.
For the record, guys, Andrew sells courses on how to debate.
Yes, you did.
If you ever want to feel good about yourself.
Okay, fine. But I guess I'll clarify as much as I possibly can, since you have the IQ of the room that you're in. Very clearly, what I'm trying to do is establish a comparison contrast. Left wing versus right wing. And if we agree thing, left wing or right wing, and then we can determine if they in study or not in study. That's it.
Did you or did you not use Darrell Brooks as an example of left-wing extremism?
No, I don't think I did. I think I was making an example of comparisons.
Go ahead. We'll continue.
In any case, I just clarified it 15 fucking times. If that's what you heard, then that's not definitely not what I meant.
I just
so
proved that you did not do any basic research on what the Darrell Brooks case was about. So I'm glad. We'll continue. Go ahead.
What does this have to do with anything? In fact, even better, let's say I'm completely ignorant on all of these cases. Then I guess going through each of them and determining whether or not they're left or right-wing violence would behoove both of us, wouldn't it?
I think that we should stay focused on less about these definitions, which we can get into, but it's just gonna be a semantical
What
argument.
is more
I think we should
fucking
stick to.
this is this is a semantical. This entire argument is semantics. Left wing versus right wing violence is completely 100% semantics. What else is it? What else is it besides semantics, bro?
Vince, the issue is that we're talking about the semantics because the studies are primarily focused on classification. They're not going to include the 2020 BLM and Antifa riots because property destruction, for some reason, lighting a building on fire is not political violence. But when a white supremacist who became a white supremacist in prison to survive commits assault on another prisoner, somehow that is political violence perpetuated by the right. And your burden is much, much more stronger than simply citing a number in a study. You can't just cite a number in a study, say, hey, look, this study based off of faulty classification shows that there's more political violence from the right. You can't just do that because you don't know the proper classifications of things. And when you do adjust for the classifications of things, you understand where the largest scale scope of political violence has occurred, which side it is from. And you see that the left has persistently, time and time again, excused, rationalized, stood in front of burning buildings, saying the mostly peaceful protest behind me. And you go in there and you cheer with these studies and saying, like, look at this
Chuck
study.
Schumer
This is what I have.
Said, that's great. So if you go to the BLM protests, you can see where Chuck Schumer actually came out and said that the small minority who have exploited the protests to wreak havoc and violence are wrong, and they are not taking part in the grand American tradition of First Amendment protests. That was from
so why do you think Kamala Harris?
We also had Gretchen Whitmer. That's great. We still had Gretchen Whitmer.
It has nothing to do with anything.
Who have taken to the streets. Yes, because what it means is that the left, once again, as I mentioned, consistently condemns the rhetoric. I would encourage you to point out to me, for example, where you could maybe point to January 6th and say where Donald Trump condemned it, yet he then pardoned over 1,600 defendants. So again, you want to talk about how the left never condemns any of this rhetoric. There's several examples in which the left consistently condemns this rhetoric.
Wait, I'm confused.
But the right never does.
Did you just say that Donald Trump endorsed J6 by not pardoning the J6 defendants?
No, by pardoning them is what he said.
Yeah, yes. And how long did that take for the pardons to come through? For the pardons to come through for the J6ers.
Why does that matter?
Well, because the reason that would matter is because that would mean that he allowed for evidentiary findings to come through before he made the decision about pardons or not pardons, right?
Right. So when he pardons someone like Enrique Tarrio for committing, seditious conspiracy to overthrow the government, who is convicted of that and in jail for that, and he pardons him because he aligns with this political agenda, that is somehow exculpatory, matters that the evidence came out later. Like, what does that have to do with it?
First of all,
you're way off the scale of
totally.
We are, but I just think this is a very weird.
But I'm actually happy. Just very quickly, I'll engage with this. Right, the president has discretion to make those pardons based on what he considered to be a political witch hunt.
Yeah, I'm aware that and it's endorsing the people who did the thing where he planned to overthrow the government.
Or not. And just like how Joe Biden decided to pardon his kid on the way out the fucking door, okay?
Sure, and if his kid had been arrested for violence, I would say that's an endorsement of Hunter Biden violence.
You can say what you want there, but the thing is that the president has the power to make these pardons based on what he thinks is best, and he thought that there was a political witch hunt and that this guy didn't deserve to be thrown in prison for this.
Yeah, that's a lot of words to say he pardoned a seditious conspiracist. But I want to get back to this BLM thing, because when we're talking about political violence and why or why not this is classified as political violence, I think you have to look at what is the downstream following of a partisan message from Democrats, from Republicans, and what is actually happening here. You can call BLM political violence if it's, hey, these people were trying to, well, hold on, let me see. Do you guys agree on the definition that political violence is a violent or credible threat of violence intended to influence government policy or intimidate civilians for political or ideological purposes?
I think it's close enough. I may make slight addendums, but I think it's close enough for this discussion.
Just in case, what would you amend?
I like to predicate it with causing harm or destruction.
Yeah, or coercion.
Sure. I would say, I'm not going to get pedantic and say that violence or threats or even, burning down buildings is somehow not political violence, just to be clear. I don't think that's why it's not counted. I think the reason BLM might not
And
be
when they
counted.
were burning down police stations, did any of these studies include that?
I'm not
Just
sure,
wondering.
but again, the problem is, are
Probably
they
not.
doing this? They might not have for that specific one, but when you look at the totality of all of these things and you look at people rioting and taking advantage of a movement, which, again, as much as it is a meme, were overwhelmingly peaceful as a percentage, is not the same as political violence intended to spread a message, change people's ideology, or
Did you
do
really
some sort of
just do
terroristic
the
act.
fiery but mostly peaceful line?
I mean, I don't know what you want to say. You can look at the stats. It's literally
I
a
think
majority
it's
of these
actually really-
protests had no
I think
violence
it's
in
really
them, but
telling.
yeah.
I think it's really telling that the majority of this organization was mostly peaceful. When you have such large scale violence and destruction, $2+ billion of damages.
Here, I'll build a
dozens
bridge to you,
killed.
John. I think the MAGA movement is mostly peaceful as well, despite January 6th and any violence committed by MAGA.
Right.
So.
Okay. So I think there's something really crucial about the framework of this debate here is that we're trying to analyze which party is more responsible. So
Right.
when you say that, like Donald Trump pardoning people 4 years after the violence was committed, then you're not really showing any culpability for Donald Trump. He didn't do anything to cause the violence.
Well, we can get to the January 6th causes, but I'm specifically saying that he is showing that there's no consequences to committing political violence on his behalf. But the reason I'm bringing up the BLM, I really want to stick on this.
They were in jail for years.
Yeah, and he wasn't president when he wanted to pardon them because his fucking insurrection failed. But regardless,
wait. Donald Trump could have pardoned all of those people on his way out of office. What are you talking about?
No, I don't think he could have done that.
I mean, think he could have.
He had it within his power, but I don't think it was in the political set to do it at the exact moment while
so he could have.
So
he could have then. Is what you're saying?
I don't know if he could have mass pardoned them in
why not
before any of their sentences were finished, before any of the prosecutions.
You can pardon somebody before they ever even have to face a federal trial.
Maybe. I don't know if that was within his purview at the time, but maybe I'm wrong. The point is, if we're talking about the downstream, okay, sure. The point is that we're talking about the downstream effects of the rhetoric of these politicians and how maybe a BLM riot might be like an execution of said rhetoric. So when you're looking and trying to classify BLM as political violence, you'd have to show that this violence is being perpetrated as like an extension of what these people are saying, like, hey, I'm telling you need to go cause harm in this, or do you need to go like extend and perpetuate my message, and they're doing the violence to do that, when an overwhelming majority of these riots were just people fucking rioting and looting for no reason, no political ideology, just taking advantage of chaos and trying to take shit.
That's a very useful kind of red herring or something like this, but it's not actually demonstrated to me that these people weren't there on the ground with Antifa terrorists, for instance, domestic terrorists, by the way, who were, and we have video after video after video of them often leading these mobs and inciting them towards violence. So the thing is,
could you be more explicit there? What do you mean?
Yeah, guys dressed all in black show up. They start breaking windows, setting fires. Suddenly there's mobs all over the place. I know, not a good enough evidence for you, but for most people who are watching the videos, they tend to think, that looks very much like organized terrorist activity. Just saying.
Okay, so to be clear, you don't like our studies that have comprehensive, analysis and methodology, because you might disagree with the methodology, and that's fine. But your evidence that you're going to present to me that BLM is politically motivated in a majority is that I saw some videos and they had masks on.
Well, wait a second. Hang on. First of all, you're making a conflationary argument. I didn't make the conflation that, BLM is left wing versus your studies of the right wing. I have a much more comprehensive argument. My argument would be that the left is full of many, many more mentally ill people than the right. And I can give you studies which you would agree show this. They suffer from greater rates of depression, greater rates of overall feelings of unwellness and unhappiness. And when left-wing political primary people, this would be congressmen, senators, people in political leadership, tell these mentally ill individuals in their base that they're dealing with fascists and Nazis who are trying to take away their rights, that actually creates much more of a motivation for that mentally ill base than anything on the right, who seems to be able to discern between funny rhetoric and panic mode like you guys do anytime Trump sneezes.
Would you say that you inflict and ask violence on you and your family by naming yourself Big Papa Fascist? You
mean a debate handle?
Yeah.
A satirical debate handle?
Oh, it was a joke? Okay. But these people are mentally ill. They can't tell the difference, I thought.
You couldn't, hang on. You didn't think that the debate handle Big Papa Fascist was satire?
I
Are
don't
you
know. I mean,
fucking
you
serious?
involve
You
yourself in
thought
a lot of fascist
Did you think
rhetoric.
I really thought I was the biggest papaist of all the fascists?
No, I
Like,
do.
what
I
the
do
fuck are
really
you
think
talking-
you embrace fascism in a lot of ways. You want a Christian nationalist nation,
What?
and it
That's
seems
not
like it
fascism.
doesn't
You
really
don't know what
matter.
fascism
Ultimately,
even
it doesn't
is, dude. Give
ultimately
me a
matter,
break.
Andrew, because like you said, you're talking to a bunch of mentally ill left-wing people. Maybe they're not able to discern whether or not it's a joke. They're not so good at humor, and maybe you're inviting violence on you and your family. I think that's
So
kind
right
of scary,
wingers
right?
can't do satire because if they do, left wingers may be provoked to violence. Great argument, Soy Bill.
No, I'm saying that if you're accusing
Great
people of
argument.
accurately describing right-wingers as fascists when they do fascist things, and that is invoking violence, then I would
fascist
say
things?
calling yourself a fascist is probably also doing that, and I
Yeah.
would probably
You
try to
don't think the
distance
point-
myself from any
you
and
don't-
all
you don't think the
past
point
names
of-
that I had that might invoke violence on me.
I got it. So when the left is calling right wingers
Mhm.
fascist for things like wanting to close off the border and having pro-life positions, that's fascism. You think
No,
that
I didn't say that.
Oh, okay, got it. So then that would not be justified use of calling them fascists and Nazis because they have pro-life positions. Would
No,
you like
absolutely not.
example after example after example of various left-wing politicians calling right-wingers fascist, authoritarians, and
No,
other
I don't need the
because
examples.
they
I know.
have
I'll call them
pro-life
fascists too. You don't
positions?
even need to use the politicians. I
Wait,
mean, we're talking about the
I-
politicians, but ultimately, I probably agree with those statements. Go ahead, Vince.
Mhm.
I'm curious here. So, Andrew, was your argument earlier then that because the left has predominantly more mentally ill people on their side, that using inflaming rhetoric such as fascist or things of that may invoke some of those people to act upon those impulses because of the fact that they are more mentally ill?
Worse.
Is that
My argument actually is that the rhetoric specifically is targeted towards that mentally ill base in order to move them towards political
Okay.
action, not
Great.
caring about violence at all.
Gotcha. So
Mhm.
would you agree though, because it seems like when you say there's more mentally ill, it does not negate the fact that there is still mentally ill people on the right, correct?
I don't disagree with that. Of course not.
Okay. So then if you have certain rhetoric
But I would
that
say
is given out
on
by
the
the right,
right.
would it not?
Yeah.
Oh,
I would
okay.
say on the right. Well, there's distinctions in the types of mental illness that you're dealing with. On the right,
Okay.
the types of mental illness you're usually dealing with are things like PTSD. We've seen a lot of this, not necessarily politically oriented. A lot of times that mental illness isn't triggered by politics or political rhetoric. It's triggered by various other things because PTSD it can affect people in bizarre ways. Left-wing mental illness is generally feelings of depression, feelings of unwellness, feelings of dissatisfaction, things like this. And a lot of those are actually associated with the political system as being things that make them feel like they have anxiety, make them feel like they're existing in a depressed mode. So I think that these
Gotcha.
politicians definitely target these people because they're very useful, jobless retards who show up to these protests in Portland and are clearly mentally ill. They're swinging their boobs around. You know, they all have blue hair. They have nose rings all over. They're obviously there's something wrong here with these.
Could you give like an example, Andrew? Like, I don't know, like Chuck Schumer, I guess is probably called him a fascist, and like how you can demonstrate like this Chuck Schumer, the guy who the left, especially the radical leftists, probably more of the mentally ill ones, will agree on that, to see as a feckless, detriment to their left-wing movement who, they want to overthrow and install some communists to replace him. This is the guy who is radicalizing people to hurt right-wingers. Like, could you show me like a quote?
Who? Which guy
Like
are you
Chuck
talking about
Schumer or like Hakeem
specifically?
Jeffries or like any like political Democrat leader who like you truly
Oh,
think
yeah.
is
Well, what they do-
radicalizing like these
yeah.
far left
They
crazy people.
don't just utilize all political pundits. In fact, when I was going through to get a comprehensive list of political pundits who have called right-wing politicians fascist and Nazis,
Mhm.
I almost couldn't find one that didn't. It was like finding the exception was actually even the what's really funny is like even the Economist do it. Even
Yeah.
the left-wing economists are like Trump's a fascist. It's
Well, when he does
crazy.
fashy shit and they describe
Yeah,
it
I mean, come on,
realistically,
man.
yeah.
He's not a fascist. Bill Clinton, we were just watching his speech the other night, right? He came out with a much more brutal immigration policy than Trump ever had. He sounded like
Okay.
one of these modern right-wing authoritarian
Did Bill
fascists.
Clinton
and
called
it's
for
like,
mass deportations?
So
did.
do you think
And to
calling
lock down the
somebody-
entire he called to lock down the entire southern border, and he wanted more isolationism with NAFTA actually, rather than global trade, which was interesting.
Interesting. Well, still, hold on,
Andrew,
Vince. Before you ask, I still wanted to answer my question as to what
go ahead.
politician that's like calling Trump a fascist is inciting these far left people, or far left people are seeing inspiration from.
It's not just them. So how this works?
Well, but we're talking about the politicians, right?
Yeah.
I don't think that you would argue that you or I,
like
with our disproportionate influence.
I'll tell you what. Just name a Democrat. Let's play a game.
Okay,
name
Chuck
a Democrat. I'll find the quote. Okay. Chuck Schumer calling Trump or right wingers fascists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, do you think calling somebody a fascist is a call to violence, or do you think it is inflammatory rhetoric that should be condemned?
I think it depends on the context in which it's used.
Do you think it's good to kill Hitler?
But hang on.
I don't know. Hitler did it, so would you say that Hitler's good?
He's got you there, John.
Yeah, well, I guess so. I mean, on a very.
I'm leaving it open.
I think there's certainly a lot of people who think that is very good to kill Hitler. If Hitler was still around and committing genocide, then that would be a good action to take in order to ensure the safety of the world.
Okay,
and
so
when you have mainstream.
I'm sorry.
Media pundits,
hang on, I just want to answer, and because you soy pills being good faith, I'll be good faith back. You are actually correct in one sense that Schumer hasn't directly used the word fascist. He says instead that he's an authoritarian here to take all your rights.
No, to be clear, I wasn't saying that he's never said it. I assumed that he had called him a fascist, if anything. I'm asking you, can you demonstrate how Chuck Schumer calling him a fascist is the inspiration for these far left people who hate Chuck Schumer, who view him as this...
Yeah, if it was just Chuck Schumer rather than the political party itself saying things like, let me give you an example, the unison of Trump is a danger to our democracy, calling for his impeachment consistently and constantly.
Yeah.
Why is he a threat to democracy? Right now, we have Gavin Newsom, for instance, who's saying that he's going to overstay the election, that his entire purpose is to have a third term. He's coming to take all of your rights. This is a unison party message.
Yeah, and I agree with all of this, by the way. But to be clear, you're saying that this is an explicit call to violence, despite all the people saying that this is an electoral solution that we have?
No, let's untangle the argument.
Okay.
Because there's multiple stages to it. So step one, that in and of itself would not be considered a call to violence as such. However, what it's trying to do is energize the base towards in the street protest and move them towards the idea that Trump is here to take all of your rights, take everything away from you. He's an authoritarian. He's a fascist. He's a Nazi. He's all of these various things. That then goes down to the governor level, goes down even to the state level, and it goes to the pundits on MSNBC, CNN. They begin to regurgitate the same exact things. And yes, the idea is to motivate these people who have a very mentally ill base to go out and conduct political violence. It does seem to translate that way. Every time I see them out in the street, they seem to be doing violent shit. I don't know what to tell you. 2020, the summer of love, they were out there doing violent shit. The protest we just covered that happened in California, out there doing a bunch of violent shit. The Portland protest that we just covered, also doing violent shit, fighting in the streets. They were trying to provoke the cops. It's like, what do you want me to do? Every time I look at the street and there's a bunch of leftist protesters, it seems to be accompanied by a bunch of fucking violence.
Well,
and the media
before we
saying,
even get to that,
it's fine, it's good. It's all good.
My question is, let's just assume for a second that there was a fascist and a bunch of people who were fighting against this fascist had a mentally ill base. Would it then be irresponsible of them to accurately describe their opponent as fascist, because ultimately some of the most mentally ill and fringe people on that base would then go and commit violence that you think is bad? Or how would one deal with that if they truly didn't believe that their opponent was that?
So contextually, right, if it's the case, there's an actual Nazi who's in office, okay, who is trying to bring back the Third Reich, and it just so happens that you're motivating your base against an actual Nazi, and some of them are mentally ill. Yes, of course, there wouldn't be any problem with that. The whole point then would be to overthrow, though, wouldn't it? Wouldn't the whole point of that be?
No.
Hang on. Wouldn't the whole point of that be that you're motivating this base against this Nazi to do what? Good things to him? Do you
No,
want him to do good things
defeat
to
them
him? Like, what do
electorally?
you want him
Because
to
if
do
you
to him?
truly thought that there was no possible way for you to do this through the system, then yeah, why would you be out there getting people to canvass? Why would you be out there telling people go register to vote? Why would you do anything other than, hey, we need to mobilize our little infiltration groups and
Here's
do
the thing that's
violence,
really
right?
funny is like, yes, there's one branch that does that, and then there's other branches which seem to motivate people to shoot political commentators, take shots at the president of the United States, beat people in the streets, set cars on fire, set buildings on fire, and are very unapologetic about it, and are continuing to organize yet another No King's Day nationally to do even more of this shit. So the thing is like, again, I'm going to throw this back to you because I answered in good faith.
Yeah.
Yes, of course you would motivate your population, but motivate them to do what? You're not going to be motivating them to do good things to the Nazi in charge, are you?
Well, to be clear, again, like this is
this
is something that I like agree with most of the politicians in the way that they're classifying Trump as a fascist. I think Nazi is obviously too far. He's not that, but calling him someone,
well, they're not going to do good things to the fascists,
but
right?
And I'm saying, look, guys, if I thought this was a non-electoral solution, there was no electoral solution here, that you had absolutely no other option, kind of like what Trump did in January 6th and saying, hey, your country failed you, Mike Pence failed you, I would say, yeah, maybe we should go do a violence. But obviously, I don't think we're there yet. I wouldn't be having this debate if I thought the only option was violence. So when we look at like the BLM stuff, and we look at the way the Democratic politicians, whether it's Newsom, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and say things like, I mean, I have a quote here. He says, there's no place for violence. There's no place for looting or destroying property or burning churches or destroying businesses, et cetera, constantly condemning this. I don't understand how you can say, well, by accurately describing this person the way that they believe him to be, and then saying also don't commit violence, we can win this electorally. This is somehow necessarily going to result in violence only because there are, I guess, a disproportionate amount of mentally ill people on the left wing. It doesn't particularly make sense to me.
I'm sorry, aren't you a person who believes in the idea of dog whistles?
Yeah, but it's not a dog whistle.
Yeah.
It's a very explicit, I think this person's a fascist.
So obviously, politicians aren't going to come out directly and go, hey, guys, you need to start killing right-wing politicians.
Yeah,
and you need to
it would be like, won't someone rid me of this awful priest, right?
Yeah, they would say things instead like, this person is trying to, I don't know.
Like hell. I mean, we can use the same rhetoric that you're saying.
Hang on, I'll engage with you. Let me finish the point.
I've gone on for the past like 20
I'm almost
minutes.
done. I'm almost done. Almost done, bro. Almost done. So like saying things like, oh, Donald Trump is trying to mobilize the military so that he can declare martial law and exist for a third term. Yeah. That's not really in the domain, I think, anymore of like, we're just trying to motivate our political base to get out there and get charged to vote him out. How do you vote a person out who you're claiming is trying to stay for an additional term by using the military? I mean, how do you do that? You don't do it. So the whole point is,
they said yes, you might do it.
I think that there's a bit of dog whistling going on there of, hey, he's an authoritarian fascist who's trying to overstay his welcome in the Oval Office, and he's prepared to use the military to put you down. So we need to really get these guys because they're a bunch of fascist Nazis. That's very much what the call is, right?
Yeah, I think if they said that was the only thing that's going to happen, I think saying he may try is much different. But I would agree that if they said Donald Trump will definitely 100% do this, and he's not going to leave office, he's going to use the military to crack down, I would say, yeah, that might be a call to buy.
Saying.
No, he's not saying that's exactly definitely. He's saying there's a good chance it will happen, and the difference being that there's a lot of avenues.
87.5% sure that he's a Nazi who's trying to take power.
Can I please respond? So the difference being that there's all these other avenues that we've explored that Trump is also trying to explore that may not involve the military, such as changing the 22nd Amendment or running as vice president and then having J.D. Vance step down. He's talking about all sorts of other avenues, and it's like, okay, there's definitely this guy has demonstrated in the past that he does not want to leave office. He tried to use false electors to stay for a third term, but we still defeated him electorally in that because the guardrails held, thank God. So saying that, oh well, if this was the only option, maybe that could be potentially a dog whistle, but clearly all of these Democratic politicians are not operating under the assumption that violence is the only option.
Yeah, so I mean, what level of surety you would actually need Gavin Newsom to be like, hey, everybody, I'm 100% sure this Nazi's trying to overstay his stay in the Oval Office and use the military right now to suppress people. So what? What does he have to say to convince you that he means what he's saying?
I think if you continue to see left-wing violence perpetuated against right-wingers and left-wing Democrat politicians refuse to condemn it and say, you know what, maybe this should happen more, I think that would be more of an indication of, yeah, they want more of this to happen. But at every single step, at every opportunity, they condemn this violence over and over and over again.
Meanwhile, all the influencers are dancing after Charlie Kirk dies. We go to TikTok.
Yeah, but notice how you keep having to deflect to the influencers and not talk about the actual politicians.
Hang on a second. Didn't I just tell you that this is a tiered system? I walked you
Yeah,
through the entire argument.
I hold the very
and
low
Soy, hang on,
tier
Soy,
at a much
Soy,
lower
you said,
regard than the
Soy,
politicians.
I
yeah.
largely agree with your assessment there. Those were your exact
I do largely
words.
agree, but again, when I bring up
So
the
I don't know
fact
what
that
to
these
tell you.
left-wing politicians are overwhelmingly condemning this, and you say, well, these influencers with a much lower reach aren't, and it's like, okay, well, are you going to address the fact that we're already talking about the inequality between the left and right politicians?
Oh my God!
But now we have to move down to
out of both sides of their mouth. That's so crazy.
Can you show me?
That a
Can you show me?
politician,
Can you show me the
politician
left
on the one hand
politicians
says,
speaking out of both
I
sides of their mouth?
I condemn the violence, but on the other hand, they go, oh, but wait a second, we're going to give you a place inside of this major metropolitan area to fucking riot. Oh, but we condemn the violence. It's like, what are you fucking talking about here, Soy?
Yeah, so you're setting up the idea that left-wing politicians giving permits and spaces for people to protest, which may turn violent at some point, is the same as them somehow advocating and perpetuating people shooting politicians and pundits and shit, which is
they let him take over an entire spot. He was finished. He was finished. You fucking idiot! Shut up.
I was finished.
Now, by the way, Soy, yeah. Did you see that? You see how I was right, doing everything wrong, right, and you're
calm down. He's the moderator.
So anyway, back to this, Soy, for you, just so that you understand, right? They took over an entire area of a city and called it Chaz Chop, said it was a neutral zone, declared it independent of the United States of America.
And then would you say that's like a downstream effect of left-wing, political speech, or is this fucking a bunch of Antifa?
Not only was it downstream of that, but it was very clear that the politicians who were in charge of said city weren't going to do a fucking thing about it, while at the same time they were condemning violence. It's like, give me a fucking break.
Can you like, if I were to go and ask some of these like Chaz people, like who inspired them to do their Chazing, do you think it would be like a Hakeem Jeffries, a Chuck Schumer, a Joe Biden, the radical Democrat left that inspired them to make a little stupid fucking square of a city and have a lawless zone, which was then cracked down on? Like, it's just ridiculous to say that this is coming from the left-wing politicians. Now, you might say that there are some left-wing governors or like super ultra progressive, attorney generals in like maybe like Portland or places like this that might actually agree with some of these crazy Antifa like
they
radicals.
Don't just agree with them. They seem to be very assisting.
Yeah, sure. Maybe even so. But the point is, we're talking about as a totality of these parties. This is not something that like Antifa is not aligned with the Democrats. The far left wing is not aligned with these people.
There's a very strong ideological backing for Antifa and BLM in the Democrats. The Democrats champion the Black Lives Matter movement. What are you talking about? Like, this is why
you notice how you just jumped to the BLM thing, which is not what I'm talking about. I was talking about Antifa. Of course,
he literally just said BLM was highly ideologically driven by the left. What do you mean he's not talking about BLM?
I wasn't talking about that. But if you look at BLM and the way that the left-wing Democrat politicians were responding to it, completely condemning all of this violence, saying rioting is completely unacceptable, and perpetuating specifically.
Harris promoted the Minnesota Freedom Fund to bail out the violent rioters. Like, I mean, come on.
I think that's the closest thing you can get to maybe she's advocating for violence, or maybe like a Maxine Waters saying you need to go get up in their faces. But then when you compare it to the totality of statements where she's saying violence is not okay, but maybe we should help people out with their bail funds, is very different.
How many of these left-wing organizations who are filled to the brim with attorneys back up all sorts of projects which are designed to bail out protesters, quote protesters, when they get cracked down on because they're breaking the law in the streets, and they pay their bail funds? NGOs will back up many of these organizations. I pointed this out in my last debate with Vince. Have a massive list of NGOs, which we can go through, who organized the No King's Day riots, and they were riots, and there were riots before those days. So the thing is like, I can show you the NGOs who helped organize this, and it's like to pretend that these people aren't working in unison with each other and aren't pushing towards violence. I think it's just crazy at this point. By the way,
Andrew,
another hang on, almost done. Another narrative.
I've been hanging on for 30 minutes.
Another narrative. Well, hang on for one more minute. Hang on for one more minute. So the thing is like, it was also you guys, remember, and your side largely, that was trying to distance yourself from violence by pinning it on a right-wing raper. After Charlie Kirk was shot, almost the entire narrative of the influencer left and the legacy media, which is left-wing, was trying to do this. And they've done everything possible, in fact, to say, nope, we didn't do it. It had nothing to do with our rhetoric. And then less than a week later, right? Oh, go to Twitter right now. Right. Charlie Kirk's a fascist Nazi. It's a fascist Nazi.
That we have said, to be clear, because I've never said that. If anything, I thought the Groyper thing was jumping the gun, to be clear. But Vince, go ahead.
Yeah. Andrew, how many people were arrested during the Los Angeles protests?
Which one?
The one from the summer in June of 2025.
I'm not sure
The
the numbers.
anti-ICE riots.
Yeah, I'm not sure the numbers.
It was over 400 arrests. So again, and when we pair that with Gavin Newsom's sentiment of, hey, we need you to peacefully protest, it doesn't seem like he's enabling it. It seems like he's actually, in fact, several people were arrested for felony charges like assault against police officers and for possessions of Molotov cocktails and a gun. So again, if this was, Gavin Newsom dog whistling, I would imagine we would expect far less arrests. And I remember actually in our previous debate, where you said the cops were just standing around. We
And they
watched
showed
video
video
of
proof.
where they were not.
Yeah,
They were not just standing around.
Yeah,
and
they were.
evidently they weren't, because they
Not
arrested
only were
400
they, but we
people.
showed the video and demonstrated, and you look like an idiot because we showed it.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
so
we showed it.
you acknowledge that there were 400 arrests that were made by Los Angeles PD due to the
Sure.
protests, right?
Sure.
Okay, so then it wasn't that Gavin Newsom was standing down or allowing this to happen. It seems like they were very adamant in trying to make sure that those who were not peacefully protesting were being held accountable. Unlike
Wait.
Donald Trump, who ended up pardoning those who actually
Wait
committed
a second.
crimes.
Here's how this tended to work during those protests. If you actually assaulted officers or gave them a hard time, they would arrest your ass. That's true. Okay. But they largely were standing around and watching everybody burn shit to the fucking ground, including what happened in the overpasses there. As you saw police on either side with paramedics on standby in case one of these protesters might have accidentally hurt themselves, lobbing a fucking rock over onto a police car that they had just set on fire. They wanted to make sure that those guys would get the help that they fucking needed. But the thing is, what's really funny about it, if you attack the cops directly, yeah, they don't put up with that shit. That's true.
I think we need to be very, there's a lot of like discussion that's like very beyond the scope that I'm seeing from our opponents here, because we need to be very clear. The left makes a climate that allows this type of violence to be highly associated with them ideologically. Like, for instance, we have a whole bunch of factions of the left that have risen up. I can name countless examples. You just gave an example, the anti-ICE riots. That's very ideologically fundamental to the left right now. We have the BLM movements that was very ideologically backed by the left as well. We have the pro-Palestine faction of the left, which the left constantly has to cater to and has caused countless of damages on college campuses. Yeah, pro-life journalists going and interviewing people and getting punched in the face. And you have our presidents being shot at, and you have our influencers dead. So it's like you need to have a very strong conviction to show that the party is very responsible by their ideological backing and their influence. And when you see bullets etched with Antifa slogans that are largely perpetuated by Democrats who are calling Charlie Kirk fascist, I think it is very clear what is going on here. There's a great unison with these politically violent actions and the party. Ideologically backed political ideologies from the party, which is highly associated with these acts.
John, I guess I have to ask, if you were to like, sorry, Vince, I'll let you go because I know I've been talking a lot, but like if you were to like ask like an Antifa like rioter, one of these violent people, like, why do you think Charlie Kirk is a fascist? Do you think a single one of them would say it's because Joe Biden said so? It's because Gavin Newsom said so? It's because, and not, these people are radicalized in their like little Marxist communist circles, and they read, I mean, you go to UC Berkeley, you should know this of all people, because I know the people at UC Berkeley. They are learning this in like, you know, their little like hippie circles. This is not coming down from like Democrat politicians. Absolutely no one is being inspired by the Kamala Harris rhetoric on ICE. Like,
who does it come down to is in charge of these hippie circles?
Who's in charge of them?
How do the people in charge of those hippie circles, how does that information get disseminated to them?
Well, this is going to get super anecdotal for me, but when I encounter these people, it's all people that talk about theory and reading communist manifestos and stuff. But if you want to say that this is somehow perpetuated by left-wing politicians, I don't really see evidence for that. But that's
wait
just
a second.
my experience.
I'm just following your line. These people they do have organizers. You agree that that's true?
Well, not really Antifa, but you know.
Yeah, they really do. In fact, I can give you one of the organizers who ran a project, which is probably where you get a lot of your stats from. And he said on camera, and I have a clip here, he literally says, that he's Antifa and that Antifa does organize. So I don't
So
know where you guys
Antifa
are
organizes,
coming
I
up with
really
that.
hate the like Joe Biden, like it's just an idea, because I think that is a deflection. I mean, obviously they're groups of people and they have like a symbol that like unites them, but ultimately it's not some like big top-down organization with like it's the head of Antifa. It's you get these little pockets of people that all kind of agree, read similar stuff, and decide to go, go to the Ben Shapiro protest or whatever. But like
the universities here, the universities are a hub for this type of ideological backing from people where, yeah, sure, the Marxists come together at universities, which is completely dominated by the left. So that is like another form of mainstream left-wing politics that is going into the educational system and is influencing people to become radicalized. And so it's like, yeah, if I asked an Antifa, like, why did you shoot Charlie Kirk? The answer is probably not going to be because Joe Biden told me so. But when you take a look at the climate that has been created by the left, it has made it such that you are predisposed to believe Charlie Kirk is a fascist, to believe that all these people on the right really want to cause you harm, are threats to democracy, are Nazis, are Hitler, to the point where you are going to take actions because you are convinced by the social constructivist narratives that the left constantly perpetuates. And you think that when you commit an action in the name of social justice, that it is a good action, no matter what law you're violating, no matter what you're doing. So you can choose what laws to obey because it is in the name of some arbitrary social justice. All of this is under the umbrella of the left wing, who has created these ideologicals, these influences that have very predisposed people to commit.
Yeah, I guess the problem I'm having is this like completely asymmetrical analysis where we can look at the left and say, yes, they condemn it totally, yes, they arrest and punish these people, and yes, they say absolutely nothing that would indicate that doing this is okay. But when the right wing calls people fascists or Marxists or any of these other things and commits political terrorism, that is a direct downstream like of the policy of the right wing. It's fringe, it's right wing. They condemn it every time. But when they pardon people, like that's somehow
political violence.
What are they arresting really for? We're getting way out of
right
the
because they don't want it to happen. Instead of pardoning these people for doing it.
You're saying that a bunch of left-wingers are conducting a bunch of violence and have to be arrected? Is that what you're saying, Zoe?
I'm saying that yes, that left-wingers do political violence. I would never say that doesn't happen.
And would you say that that's been kind of an ongoing theme here recently? And I mean, he just said 400 of them had to be arrested for conducting violence in California recently.
Not necessarily correct.
I'm sorry. Does this have anything to do with what I said about the asymmetrical analysis that we're doing here?
I can explain.
Okay, I can't wait. I think we lost Vince.
Arrests. Oh, can you hear me?
We lost Vince.
Oh, yep.
Hold on, can you hear me?
All right. Yep.
Okay.
You're good.
So it said the vast majority of arrests have been for failing to leave the area in defiance of requests from law enforcement. So essentially staying out, and they're telling them to move, and they didn't move, and they got arrested. The other ones were more serious charges, and it was a handful, not a whole lot of them, but it was a handful of more serious charges, including for assault against police officers and then possession of a Molotov and cocktail. So again, when we talk about, but the thing
he just really said vast majority for not leaving an area, so no, not violence.
The rest,
he just cited violence.
Guys, let Vince finish.
The wild thing about this to me is it's exactly like Soy Pill said. Y'all are providing numerous examples of the left, and that's fair, fine. Let me just provide a few here, because we had the 2024 election that happened last year, and there were numerous calls made into certain election and polling places. We also saw 2025 where the CDC shooter was all upset about the COVID-19 shot that he had gotten, and he didn't like. He thought he was melting his brain or whatever it was. We also had the 2022 Buffalo seat, and that's right there exactly what I said in my opening statement. I'm glad you mentioned that, Andrew, because I believe in my opening statement I said when it's the left will openly condemn that violence. They say, hey, there's no place in there. When there was a protest, they'll say, hey, there's no place for this violence. But when the right does it, they then say, hey, guess what? It's because of mental illness, which is what I said. Or they'll say it's because of PTSD, but they'll never own their rhetoric that may have led up to that. Because of COVID-19
that's really
and anti.
Yeah, you just cut out again.
Oh,
sorry, man.
We lost Vince again. All right, well, Andrew,
I've got really bad internet, so I'm
smiting you for lying, by the way. But anyway, so where were we? Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is that we can point to certain rhetoric that may have led these mentally deranged people on the right go towards these particular acts. We talked about, for example, that one person who talked about the COVID-19 shot. We've seen where the Buffalo shooter, for example, had an anti-immigration sentiment, and we could talk about all that. And whereas on the left, we'll sit here when we have someone that does these things, condemn those particular violent actors. But on the right, they immediately, for example, we just saw the Mormon incident where the guy drove the truck through the church. And what was the first thing that everybody said? Instead of saying, hey, maybe our rhetoric is pretty bad, they go, hey, he's suffering from PTSD. It's
well,
not
wait,
our
Vince, I have to
rhetoric. Our
correct you. The
rhetoric has
first thing they
nothing to do
said
with
was
it.
Christianity is under attack, and this is the left wing doing this. Then they said, once they realized it was a MAGA guy, that it was not.
Oh,
Exactly.
well, the thing is that my understanding is that the entire Mormon thing happened because of a girl that he was interested in, and they broke up. And yes, the guy was crazy. And so this is the thing that's really funny. So I'll just be very unequivocal with this, just like I was with Destiny. I condemn all acts of political violence, right or left, period. Am I saying that there's never any such thing as incendiary rhetoric, which comes out of the right? Of course not. Am I saying that there's no such thing as people who say things which could trigger people to go do violent acts? Of course not. Am I even saying that there's a way to 100% avoid that and have speech? Of course not. Has nothing at all to do with this conversation about which side is doing this more. And so as we dive into this, we need to be very precise. Remember how I wanted to get these semantics in order, and you never want to fucking do that because you think it's a trap. You think it's a trick.
No, it's not a trick.
Even though I keep
find
trying
it
to just
boring.
tell you, it's a great way to avoid equivocation. And Vince, if you do it more, we wouldn't have to run into this so much. So the thing is here that's interesting, I'm willing to go case by case. It could be the case.
Except for Darryl Brooks.
It could be the case. You know, I told you I was willing to go into that case as well. I was just explaining to you that I was making comparison contrast there about why it would be important for us to utilize studies the correct way by making correct classifications we could agree to. Again, semantics, very simple. The thing that's really interesting here is like, if you give me a case and it's very clear that this was motivated by the right, and there's compelling, significant evidence that it was, my side always universally condemns that, by the way. And Charlie Kirk universally condemned that, by the way. We always condemn it. We're always saying, I was the one on the Pierce Morgan panel saying, of course, I condemn this type of violence. It was the representation for your side, the Coomer gremlin, who just couldn't quite bring himself to say, probably wasn't a great idea that you took a shot at Trump and killed Charlie Kirk. It was him.
Yeah,
so
again,
is,
so
like,
you keep going back to pundits, but
hang
we're
on.
talking about our politicians, and you really like to pivot on this one specific
You
thing.
keep switching, though. You keep switching between the two.
When do I switch?
You're doing kind of like the worst form of equivocation, because we start with me saying this works from the top down, and you agree. So you've already agreed.
Yeah, but obviously there's a hierarchy of responsibility there, and I think that pundits are way lower on that hierarchy than a politician.
What would that have to do with the left or the right conducting more violence? Why would it need to be necessary?
Because which is actually causing it? Who has more influence?
By the top of the hierarchy, rather than it could be conducted by Antifa terror cells. It could be conducted by radicalization on side of college campuses. It could be conducted in all sorts of Discord groups, Telegram groups. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the top down. I don't think
because if we're talking about who is responsible for it, then we need to look at one who's committing more. Of course,
we're not just talking about that though. We're talking about who conducts more of it.
Right. So if we want to talk about who conducts more of it, and we really want to read through the CSIS study, I mean, we can talk about it. There's a reason why. Like we can, but like it's going to be real boring. And the problem is at the end of it, you're either going to say, well, I don't agree with the methodology, and then not provide an alternative methodology that somehow parses through the numbers that you're satisfied with. And it's ultimately not going to get us anywhere because you're never going to say, well, the right does it more.
That is not how science works, Soy. Science does not work where you say, I have an experiment or some type of data collection here which is easily falsifiable and you have to replace it. That's not how that works. I don't need to give you alternatives to
to be clear, you're claiming the left does it more, and your evidence is I can name a bunch of things and look at these videos, and when I say a study, you can poke holes in it, and that's totally fair. That is how science works, but you have to give me either a better study with better methodology or go through and parse through the cases used in this study and say, this is how they all are classified under my methodology and how then the numbers would add up, and then show me that new graph. But if you can do neither of those things, I'm going to choose to actually use the study in the way that it works, and you can just be not okay with it.
Let's use your own study.
Sure.
Okay.
So do you have the CSIS one in front of you?
Since Trump was reelected, this is according to Cato.
That's not my study.
It is.
No, it's not. It's the CSIS one.
Dude, if you shut up, I'll show you.
Okay.
The left has killed 2 times as many people, according to the CSIS.
Oh,
The
okay.
one that you're referencing,
Okay,
the
sure.
left-wing terrorism is at its worst in 30 years.
Yeah.
Are you-
Are you talking about the little bar at the end where the left-wing terrorism has gone up by a little compared to the previous year, and then the right-wing bar is still extremely large? Because you're looking at the very last year that's not complete. Is that how we're going to disprove my
study? I just told you that according to Cato, the left's killed 2 times as many since Trump's election.
In the year since Trump's election, so you're only going to selectively look at 8 months, just to be clear. So to be clear, if your argument is the left is more violent in the past 7 months exclusively, and we only look at that, sure, okay. I mean, yeah, that's just demonstrably true.
Wait a second. When was it that the left became completely mobilized towards violence? Was it under fucking Biden or was it under somebody else, Soy?
What do you mean, like when Trump was in 2016, like his first term, or do you mean current
when they
Trump?
did mass protests before against Trump, and now we see the cycle repeating
well,
again?
Hold on, because you're talking about BLM and you're talking about the Summer of Love, and now you're only able to look at the you're like, okay, I'll use the stats, but only if I can pick out this very last bar of this last year, which I'll agree with. I'm saying, yeah, actually, this is true. I'm not contesting this study. I'm agreeing. The left has been more violent in 2025, according to the study, in the very last year. Now, if we're talking about exclusively that, I don't know which debate you signed up for, but I signed up for as a totality. And you can look at this graph. I mean, I'll pull it up for my audience. I can't show it for everyone.
This is perfect.
But it's pretty funny to look at this and say, oh, yep, this is definitely a left-wing problem.
This is perfect.
I mean, I don't know if you want to bring that up to the moderator.
This is the funny thing
this
about
this will never let us finish an exchange. Go ahead. Go ahead, Vince. I'm sure whatever you're about to say is important. Go ahead.
Yeah, here we go. So now that you're hearing me. So the issue here is that you're pointing to this, but I remember when Trump was in office the first time, and we do have.
I don't know. I can't even understand the guy. So anyway, back to you, Soy Pill.
I'll wait. It usually only lasts 2 seconds. I'll let him come back.
It is garbage. You know what? I'm gonna hang on, Vince. I can actually help you with this. If you have a mobile hotspot, turn your mobile hotspot on and shut off your internet. Yeah, turn your mobile hotspot on. So anyway, back to this, Soy Pill. Actually, now we're getting somewhere. So this is actually great. So you made the concession. You agree. Left-wing violence.
It's not a concession. It's an agreement of objective reality that you, by the way, have for the past hour said is not true. But now that you're looking at the last year, you're like, yep, it's true. So no, it's not a concession.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So anyway, I'll try to finish the point because you know you're about to get fucked here. So thing is on the CSIS, if you make the concession that it is the case that under Trump, left-wing violence is much higher, killed 2 times as many people. You agree with all of this. You're making the concession there. The thing that's really funny is this is why I want to go through the methodology. Because if you make the concession that the left is far more violent right now, and I agree with you, all that's left is whether or not the left has been violent this entire time, which is why we need to go through the methodology of the rest of the study. You see how that works?
Okay,
because
so
if we can demonstrate the rest of the study, you're classifying things wrong, but we can agree the left is more violent now. We've won the fucking debate, Soy.
To be clear, no, because the debate is not, is the left wing more violent in the current year? Is the who is more responsible for political violence? Second of all, if you want to start on the axiom that we can concede that both of us agreed with this study for this one particular year, but then we have to go back and meticulously pick it apart for all the other years. No, absolutely not. You're either accepting of the study or you're not. And if you so if you're looking at this last year and you agree with it, if you agree with this study's methodology, then okay, I accept that you agree with this methodology, and then we can look and see that the right wing is overwhelmingly responsible for political violence as a whole for most of human history, or not human history, excuse me.
What?
But no, yeah, excuse me, that was a mistake. For most of the history of the study, no, I don't mean all of human history.
Yeah, I understand. I'm not going to be a pedant, but let me just
so I don't understand why you're able to cherry pick and then go through the methodology and not just look at the methodology. Period.
If I had a study and the study said that 100% of people who eat dog shit don't like how it tastes, right? But 20% of white people or black people like how it tastes more than Mexican people. Can we agree that both of us could look at the methodology of that study and agree 100% of people don't like eating dog shit? We've now agreed. But we could have great differences on the methodology for how we came to that 20% number. Do you agree that that's true?
I agree that that's true, yes.
Okay,
but then why are you saying that it's a concession
bro,
in the last year if you don't necessarily agree with the methodology yet?
Trying to explain. So when we go through the methodology of the classification, my concern there would be actually that it's discounted and it's even higher than they're claiming. But I'm willing to concede the point even on the CSIS on the end. If you are, we can go through the classifications for all of these other years. And boy, if it turns out that they're not classifying these things correctly, then we can do some type of rough calculation to see which one of us is, or which side is actually conducting the most amount of political violence.
Okay, so to be clear, you're not agreeing with this last year because it is a methodology you agree with, because any of the things that are demonstrated are true. It just happens to show that you're right. So if it showed the opposite, you would immediately discredit it. So why even call it a concession?
What are you talking about? That has nothing to do with what I just said.
You literally just said I could concede. I guess you said I could concede on this point, but I actually think it's wrong. It just happened to be right in the correct way that I already agreed with. It was my presupposed notion. So why even bother pointing out that last year whatsoever if you're not
going to... Didn't I give you a
qualifier?
qualifier? What was my qualifier? That I actually think that left-wing violence, even this year classified, is higher.
Yes, yeah.
But I would be willing to concede the point at least that in this year it's higher if you do. But we do need to go through the rest of it.
Again, it's not a concession. I just agree with the study telling me
to make a determination if you agree with these classifications. Both of you are unwilling to do it because you don't believe the classifications.
Okay,
you don't believe them.
No, let's go. All right, we can do it, but I promise you by the end of this, you're going to say, well, because the classifications aren't the way I would do it, and I haven't done a comprehensive analysis of these numbers in a way that shows that what I believe is true. Therefore, I discredit this study. I have no other option to show that the left wing is more violent. I just feel it's true because I've seen more of it, and that's the end of the debate. Like, it's going to be a huge waste of time, but let's do it. Let's go through it.
Yeah, and I want to mention this too, Soy Pill, before we jump into this. Andrew, in his opening statement, said all the claims will hinge on studies. Soy Pill will likely tell you the truth, and then and he'll bring up all these studies. He's saying all the claims will hinge on the studies. He's dragging us into talk about these particular studies when we're like, hey, look,
your arguments hinge on
studies.
The things that your argument hinge on.
The only person here that wants to talk about these studies is Andrew.
The only person here who wants to talk about your evidence is Andrew. That's crazy. It's almost like we're in a debate.
I want to talk about it. I just don't want to read the whole study and then get to the part where Andrew says, "Never mind, I don't like it," because I think it's going to be boring. But yeah, we can do it.
The evidence.
Okay, well, let's just try it this way. If you don't want to go through it, maybe we can just try it this way. Soy, would you agree with me? Would you agree with me that there's going to be problems in the methodology of classification that you likely aren't going to agree with in that study? Yes or no?
I think every study is going to have at least something that I would say, I'm not sure about that, but I would still use it as an aggregate and showing what is happening, unless there was something major.
Why?
For example, if they said something,
do that? That's
listen, Andrew, because I want to give you this. This is a concession, all right? If this study, and this doesn't do this, but if this study said right-wing violence includes something like Wahhabist Islamic terror attacks, even though that I would acknowledge why they might say that, because it's like, oh, well, because you can classify this as right. To say that something like,
to say does include Muslim terror attacks.
No, it actually doesn't. It actually has an entire other classification for this, if you read it, that is religious extremism that is not left or right. And there's a good reason for that, because you can't really say, oh boy, all 3,000 people that died in 9/11, that's right-wing violence, because that would be ridiculous.
Actually, I believe in the CSIS, the way that they come up with right-wing affiliation is through religion. Just so you know.
There are parts of religious extremism that can be classified in the study if you've read it, but not just religious extremism, which is its own other thing. So, for example, a Christian nationalist terrorist attack, like with Dylan Roof, would be a right-wing extremist, but the fucking 9/11 attacks wouldn't be. And that's why I'm saying, if there was a methodology that extreme that said, yep, right-wing includes 9/11, yeah, I would say that's an incredibly flawed study that we can't take seriously. I don't think that exists in here, but if you want to point me to something that is like that flawed.
Have you read that study?
Yes, I've read the CSIS. I haven't read it word for word, but I have looked through it.
And what does that mean, though?
Right,
like, how much of it have you read? How much?
Truth. It's like 10 pages, so I've read like 6 of them.
Dude.
Like, I don't know what you want.
Here's the thing, man. It's like, this is where the disconnect is. How are we supposed to even have a good faith debate over which side is conducting the most amount of violence? If it's the case that the thing which you're banking on, which is evidence from these organizations, you haven't even read the very studies that you're banking on.
So to be clear, the things I looked out for, because I knew you'd bitch about it, were the methodology, how they classified the different types of violence, and specifically looked out for major egregious things, like the one I just mentioned. The one I just mentioned. Those are the things I did read through. Something I didn't read through would be, for example, if I scroll down to the end notes, which take to the end notes that have 2 pages I didn't read.
In 10 pages?
What?
You just said you read through the methodology in 10 fucking pages, dude. Give me a fucking break.
The entire thing is 10 pages. I'm not. If there's a more in-depth version of this study, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the domestic terrorism brief that has been released that describes the methodology, the classifications, that shows the graphs. Yes.
Link it over. Let's take a look at it.
This is my problem with debates like these where you like introduce a study and you use that as your key point of evidence, because we really haven't seen many evidence coming from our opponents other than this study. And all this
To be
study
clear, this
shows
is also
look at this
one-to-one,
number.
very closely mapped on
Look
by
at
the
this number
DOJ.
here.
So it's also the
I'm
government
almost,
agrees
I'm
with it.
almost finished with my point. Look at this number here. Oh, look, my study shows this number. Let's not look into the number. The number is just what it says. And no matter
Let's
what the
look into the number.
classifications are, the methodology, no matter what the situation is. Well, okay, so here's my proposition. When we're analyzing which party is more responsible, we have to see the ideological backing and the influence that the party has had over the actions and mental states that cause these people to commit these violent acts. And we should also look at the impact that they have had. And when you look throughout history, modern history, the largest scope and scale of political violence has occurred from the left. Your presidents aren't being shot at. Your influencers aren't being shot at. You don't have conservative college campuses that are throwing riots and protests.
Wait, by
You
your
don't
own
have
metric, John, can you point to
anti-Biden
these people that
protests.
tried to shoot Trump as having downstream messages disseminated by like Democratic politicians? For example, Thomas Crooks, which I still don't know if we've even
Donated
established
to
that
Act
as.
Blue. He donated to Act Blue.
Did he not also
Where
like
does that show
donate
the
to a
rhetoric?
Republican Party and or vote for them? Like, can you
It
show that
shows
the
that
rhetoric is
he's
like
in
contributing to
support of
this?
the
He also had
Democratic
plans
Party.
to shoot Joe Biden. I don't know if you knew about that, but like the whole point is
Okay,
like,
so I
yeah.
can tell you the Charlie Kirk assassin.
Well, hold on. Do you see? Okay, you just moved off the point completely, John. Please, like, answer the
Edited
question
hard.
because
I
I
think
agree
when
with
you
your
donate to
definition.
Act
You
Blue,
have to
that's a
show how the
very-
ideology is influencing this. But if you're going to point to something like, hey, our presidents got shot at, it's like, okay, how is this happening? For example, if it was a Ukrainian person, I think there's someone pro-Ukrainian person was the one waiting for him on the golf course. I think there's a much closer connection that you could draw there to showing, hey, Trump doesn't care about Ukraine. He's a Russian puppet, blah, blah, blah. You could make a good argument there. But the Thomas Crooks one, like, I just don't see how that is somehow coming down
The
from
argument is
Democrat
based off of
rhetoric.
the existence of the shootings, or rather than the non-existence of the shootings on the left. We
Okay,
have our people
again,
who are
he
being
was
shot
also had
and
plans to
killed.
shoot Joe
Your people
Biden.
aren't
So
being
by
shot
that
at
same
all.
logic,
So
you could say
let's
that. Okay.
Yeah, your people aren't being shot and killed. You have all these slogans that are etched into the bullet that killed Charlie Kirk.
Melissa
You have
Hortman?
Destiny,
Oh,
who's not
that's-
condemning the killing of Charlie Kirk. You have the guy who donated to Act Blue, who shot Donald Trump. I don't see Joe Biden being shot at. I don't see Kamala Harris.
Are
being
you keep
shot at.
ignoring that guy that you were talking about who tried to shoot Donald Trump and missed and died was also planning to shoot Joe Biden, if you're going to keep bringing up that example. But again, if you're going to keep bringing up these minutia of examples in the recent, this even falls into specifically, I don't know if these three things, by the way, were well, not especially not the ones that didn't happen this year, but the ones that happened this year, as per this study, if they're classified as left-wing violence, are included and are showing that there is more left-wing death this year specifically. That's just true. That's based on this study. So if you want to stop there for some reason, yeah, okay, we can just talk about 2025. But ultimately, we're looking at the totality, and you claim like, well, it's because of the fascism, it's because of the Nazism, and yet all these people were calling Trump Hitler fascist back in 2016. J.D. Vance was even doing it, and somehow this wasn't happening nearly to the same degree, and the right wing was much, much higher in those years. Why is this somehow now different in this year?
The protests were very violent when Hillary
Well,
Clinton was
because you
9
spent
years
4
old.
years under Joe Biden saying that you had thwarted a threat to democracy and ousted a Nazi from office.
No, why didn't it happen
And
from
now he
2016 to
Now he
2020?
sees power. Now he sees power again.
Why didn't it
Now he
happen?
sees
Why
power.
didn't this happen from
You're
2016 to
very much
2020?
missing the point of my statement. The point of my statement was to look at the scale and scope and impact of the things. The right has suffered more significant losses, damages, and impact that has been perpetuated by those with close ties to the left. And so, like, I didn't just cite the shootings of Donald Trump and Charlie Kirk. That's why I also cited the riots, which again caused over $2 billion of damages. You had
Which again, you can't connect necessarily to the ideology because you'd have to show that every single
Black
one of
Lives
those
Matter
dollars
was
that
not
were
fundamental
perpetuated and
to
damaged
liberal
were directly
ideology.
tied to BLM and trying to do a political movement, and not a bunch of rioters doing stuff to do fucking rioting for no reason. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that none of this was because of BLM ideology. There were plenty of people that were like, I think specifically, if you look at the police station burning down, that's probably political violence. I doubt those people were just burning random fucking buildings down.
what do you
But
think
you're
about the
just
Minnesota
grouping
Freedom
all of
Fund?
this together and saying
They just
like, this
wanted
is
to loot
left-wing
the vending
violence.
machines, bro. They just wanted to loot the vending machines, you know.
Oh, in the police
What do you think about
in the
Alexandria
police station.
Ocasio-Cortez talking about social justice when all these Antifa and BLM riots are going on? Like, what does that say?
So I've got a few
That says
statements from
commit
Kamala
violence?
Harris.
Like-
For example, by the way, so when that whole incident happened with the attempt on Trump's life, Kamala Harris said, "I'm deeply disturbed by the possible assassination to perform President Trump today. As we gather the facts, I will be clear. I condemn political violence. We all must do our part to ensure that this incident does not lead to more violence."
Wait,
Now,
Vince, did she
you'll
wink at the
know
camera
Andrew
after? That
Wilson
sounds
has
like a dog
already said
whistle.
that these are dog whistles. So I'm sure that this won't be satisfactory. But there was also when she made a statement regarding the Charlie Kirk incident. She said, "Let me be clear. Political violence has no place in America. I condemn this act, and we all must work together to ensure this does not lead to more violence. So again, when we talk about the Charlie Kirk incident, we talk about President Trump, we could talk about, I think there were...
Oh, there he goes again. Fucking deep state, man.
Yeah, I'm working as best as I can with what I got. So excuse me if the internet goes out.
It's better. I mean, it's better than it was. The thing is like the only frustrating thing is you know, I want to hear what you're saying, and you cut,
I appreciate that.
You cut in and out. So
you should type out every statement before you say it. So as soon as you cut out, I'll pick up where you left off.
There's several different bits of the where you see Kamala Harris and numerous other high-ranking profile Democrats again condemning these things.
Okay, so Andrew Wilson did talk about the dog whistles. I do think there's a lot of that involved, but it's not just the dog whistles, right? You also are responsible for the climate that you create that causes these things. The difference between Democrats and Republicans is that when George Floyd died, you caused all these riots. When Charlie Kirk died, we hosted prayer vigils and that called for peace.
Yeah, because ultimately you guys have actually nothing to be upset about in change.
When
So
you have Kamala Harris raising bails for these violent rioters, the Minnesota Freedom Fund, you should look it up. When you have Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez saying that we should respect social justice, when you have people standing in front of fires calling arson and the riots mostly peaceful, and you have all these CNN pundits, MSNBC pundits saying all these things, you're very responsible for the ongoing political climate that causes people to engage in actions of this sort. And I think it's very clear that when we have these cases, you can't just bypass it by saying Kamala Harris condemned it, because Kamala Harris also bailed out defendants who were guilty of these violent crimes.
I'm actually curious, like just on that one thing specifically, and this is not a gotcha. If you could show me specifically
that means
the people
it's a gotcha,
that she was,
by the way.
No, I'm serious. Like if you could show me specifically that she's like saying, here's the bail fund for someone who like committed an illegal act, and like in the same way, I would say I don't think these things are proportional, but they are very similar. That Donald Trump would pardon someone who like did seditious conspiracy. I think that bailing out. No, I know she retweeted it, but like I want to know like the crime specifically that these people did, because if it was like what Vince was talking about in LA, and hey, they got arrested or whatever for not leaving an area, I don't think that is equal to saying that this person is endorsing violence. But if you're paying for the bail of someone who burned down a police car or some shit like that, I could say that there's a okay argument there. I think the problem is here that you're saying, I mean, you said this in your opening, John, that the right always condemns this. The right doesn't participate in this at all. And I just think this is so ridiculous. I mean, to be fair, I know Andrew did say that, yeah, obviously the right's going to be part of some, crazy rhetoric or whatever. But every time we show you an example of a right winger, like, for example, this is a Donald Trump quote. If he says, "It is the enemy from within. They're very dangerous. They're Marxists, they're communists, and fascists. They're dangerous for our country." Speaking about like the Democrats, right? Like this is somehow not at all responsible for any right-wing violence committed against the people who he's condemning completely as the totality. He's grouping this not as these small left-wing fringe people like you try to say when it's right-wing. He says it's the Democratic Party. Stephen Miller says the Democratic Party is the party of extremists. And somehow this is not at all responsible for not toning down the temperature. Like this is completely asymmetrical analysis.
I haven't actually seen. Yeah, show me the example of the links between that rhetoric and any of this so-called right-wing political violence. You can't. Not only that, just to refute this easily, Kamala Harris in October 2024 said that Donald Trump's a fascist during a CNN town hall, stating his actions and rhetoric echoed fascist leaders. She reiterated this in her speeches, linking it to his admiration for authoritarian figures, Hitler. All right. This is what she was claiming. So this is the woman who's running for president, and she's your party leader at this point, right? Yep. Your party's leader.
Yeah. Could you show me some violence tied to this, please?
So the thing is like,
well, no, I'm using the same standard you just applied to me. Could you show me the violence tied to that?
Fascist catch.
Okay, so again, so you think this woman was this person who shot Charlie Kirk was inspired by Kamala Harris saying that Trump was a fascist?
I think that the totality of the Democrat machine is working in unison for the message that Donald Trump and the right wing are a bunch of Nazi fascists, and that, yes, she contributed to that rhetoric greatly. And I don't see the same thing on the right at all. I don't see a unified message in the party saying that left-wingers are a bunch of evil fascists who are just trying to kill everybody. That's not what I see. What I see instead is I see on the right, they condemn political violence basically always. I don't see the fractional groups.
No.
I don't see the fractional groups like you do with Antifa.
Here,
Things
I
like
got a
this,
few.
who are shut up. Let me finish. Who are
Go
doing
ahead.
these cell organizations for violence, who are linked to NGOs. Who many of these NGOs are also donors to the DNC. So on the one hand,
Whoa,
they're
dude.
funding the riots, and on the other hand, they're also funding the DNC.
All
It's
right,
crazy.
to be clear,
How does that work?
I mean, if we still haven't gone through the CSIS, but if you want to talk about like small unit cells of right-wing violent terror, like the Boogaloo Boys, like the 3% Michigan Militia, like the Proud Boys, like the people who planned the seditious conspiracy on January 6th, I think it's kind of weird that we're running away and saying this doesn't exist on the right. When Donald Trump can say something like, "Hey, Proud Boys, stand back and stand by," because he can't fucking condemn them, I think that's insane.
Did the Proud Boys do?
What, trying to overthrow the government and kidnap politicians on January 6th?
No.
Seditious conspiracy.
Hang on. Before January 6th, these people were allocated by Democrats as being some sort of like domestic terror cell, that they were evil right-wing extremists. What did they do? Except beat up Antifa members.
Why are you moving away from this thing that I'm describing, which is the dead to rights seditious conspiracy thing?
I'm showing you something important. What's important is that long before J6, and Gavin McInnes starts the Proud Boys, okay? And what they were, the Proud Boys were doing everything they could to stop Antifa from beating people in the fucking streets.
And they did do you know why Gavin McInnes disavowed the Proud Boys?
Because otherwise they were threatening to put him in prison.
No, it's because they got too racist and extreme for him, and even he couldn't handle it.
No, it's because there was political pressure which was put on Gavin. I know Gavin. Do you?
No, I don't know Gavin.
Yeah, I do. And what happened there, I have a whole interview about it. You can go watch it on the Crucible. Okay. And so the thing is like, look, that's not what happened at all. What happened is there was a great amount of political pressure which was put on McInnes, trying to say that he was a terrorist, and that's what they were trying to move towards with leftist rhetoric.
So you think he would have stuck around during the seditious conspiracy thing, or no?
Hang on, he was getting deplatformed everywhere. And for what? All the Proud Boys did was protect people from Antifa fucking lunatics.
That's a really interesting way of framing it, considering I could say, well, all the Antifa was doing was protecting the other people from the crazy white supremacist Proud Boys. But in reality, you've got two pretty extreme political groups beating the shit out of each other. No, and I'm not going to try to say that, oh, the brave Proud Boys just doing the great things, you know? Like, this is obviously the most biased framing ever. Do you realize
that in a fight you usually have initiators, you have aggressors. It's true you can have mutual combat. But in the cases that I saw with Proud Boys.
Oh, did you see a bunch of videos? That's crazy.
It was not, no, it wasn't just
there's
videos.
Like a study about how many videos you saw?
There's official reports on it, like what happened in New York. They were attacked and defended themselves. They got arrested because they won.
Oh, okay.
That's it. They just won.
Okay.
Like they won the fight, and
You've
so they get arrested.
I've seen the totality of evidence about all the Proud Boys and all the violence they've ever committed, and somehow they just like stumbled into. Well, my evidence is that they committed fucking seditious conspiracy on January 6th. I think that's pretty fucking insane and terroristic.
All pardoned for it, fucker.
Yeah, they all got pardoned, which I believe is an endorsement for them to do something like that again if he loses in 2028. I think what it is
that there was a witch hunt that was going on, and once the president, the
witch hunt came in, dude, they texted each other. Make no mistake, we did this. It's the most dead to rights fucking they did this shit. Planned to overthrow the fucking government.
No, they didn't plan to overthrow the government.
I know they suck because they're fucking lame. But you're acting like it's a witch hunt. All right, guys, we're gonna go in there and walk in the lines. That's what we're doing, Proud Boys. Let's go.
So that you note, they were all pardoned. You got nothing. And you can't point to anything pre-J6 either that they actually did wrong.
Well, I didn't come here to debate whether or not the Proud Boys were violent pre-J6. I think it's pretty fucking bad, though, that they got indicted and convicted for seditious conspiracy. And your only defense against that is, well, the guy who told them and wanted them to go do that said that it's okay that they did that. So you have nothing, as if the fucking conviction was like some crazy witch hunt when we have text messages from them saying, yep, we're doing it. We're doing the crimes.
But here's the thing, right? And this is what's really funny. Those text messages, one, in context, actually don't say that. And two, to go through this, these guys were pardoned for anything which would have been considered criminal on J6. Not only that, let's point out that there was left-wing groups who were trying to label them, including the ADL, as being a racist domestic terror group before they were ever doing anything wrong. Most of the groups that you just cited, Boogaloo Boys,
3% Michigan
there was
Militia was the other one I
Oath
answered.
Keepers, Proud Boys. Most of these guys never did a fucking thing wrong, and the left was already claiming that they were domestic terrorists and this type of thing. So you're just lying through your teeth, and you get the timelines
so
all
when
botched.
when they beat up people and do terrorism, it's always because the other people did it to them first. And I know this because I saw videos of it. Just to be clear, like that is the example. Well, no, you have to affirm to me when I look. I have a study here that's claiming that some of these people, because you can go through the methodology. I bet you'd be really upset. And this is why I really didn't want to pick through it. It mentions the Boogaloo Boys. It mentions the Proud Boys in here, and I bet you'd be like, well, they've never done anything violent. But I would need to show something. You would need to show me that these people are not committing an act of terrorism. You'd have to show me some sort of thing that every single time they've been arrested for violence, it's always self-defense. And if otherwise, I just have no reason to believe that, like, oh, well, I'm saying that these terrorist groups aren't terrorist groups. Therefore, the study is invalid.
No, I'm saying that the methodology for the study that you didn't even read, you gave me a 10-page pamphlet, which sources all of the actual supporting material at the end of it.
Yep.
Right. You didn't even fucking read it. You still don't even want to go through the actual methodology because you're concerned.
I said we could go through, to be clear.
You're concerned that it's going to demonstrate that
no, I'm really not. I said let's go through it.
That most of these things which are classified as right-wing violence, you wouldn't agree with.
Okay,
and so
again, we can go through it if we want to waste our time.
And even then, even if I granted this to you, the funniest part of all of this is how fucked your timeline is. How are these people going to go after clubs like the Proud Boys and things like this, the Oath Keepers, before they ever did anything wrong and preemptively labeled them as terror groups?
Well,
and
to be clear, this is only contingent on believing you that they've done literally nothing wrong ever. I just brought the absolute worst thing they've ever done out, and now you're claiming they've never done anything violent except for self-defense before that, which I find is very spurious. But, you know, I mean, you've seen a bunch of videos, so that's
the worst thing that they were pardoned for?
The worst thing they were pardoned for, yeah.
They were pardoned for
Oh,
it.
yeah. I like how you're smugly like, gotcha, dude. The guy who told them to go do it, pardon them. Like, that's kind of the whole issue we have with it.
Wait a second. I'm really confused. Were the Proud Boys pardoned for J6?
Yeah, didn't you just say that like 100 times?
Can you have false convictions, which you are pardoned for by the chief law enforcement officer, for instance?
You can, but you can also have incredibly corrupt pardons, and I would agree that if you look at Joe Biden pardons, I'd say some of those are corrupt and wrong too, right?
They have pardon power for a reason. It's specifically to stop when there are witch hunts like this.
By the way, don't call these people fascists when they're like, yes, my authoritarian leader is allowed to pardon anyone for anything if it helps him out.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry for inciting violence.
Guys, here's the crazy thing I'm hearing about this, right? Is so we have two contrasting things happening right now. We have Gavin Newsom, who, when the protests happened, said, I condemn them. It should be peaceful. And they were arrested. They were not released. They were arrested. Now, they may have been released on bond, but
he told you earlier.
Violent crimes against police officers.
No, I'm not done. I'm not done talking, Andrew. I know. I'm glad. But see, here's the crazy thing about this is as Andrew's laughing, he doesn't realize that there's other contrast to this, which is Donald Trump, who has not condemned, quite frankly, the Jan 6 things. And even if he did, it's contrasted by the fact that he actually pardoned them. So if he actually cared about that, and he did care about political violence on his side, then he would probably let the justice system work its way through. But we know that Donald Trump doesn't really care. In fact, he's actually called Kamala Harris a fascist, a communist, a Marxist. We've seen Stephen Miller saying the same thing, echoing the same thing. Yet I haven't heard anybody mention anything about Donald Trump saying those words. Because it's okay when the right does it, but when the left does it, somehow now it's all sorts of crazy.
Yeah.
Right?
So you have
lots of lies. There's lots of lies in there. I mean, first of all,
where's the lies?
You said he didn't condemn it. January 7th, he released a statement saying, "I would like to begin by addressing the heinous attack on the United States Capitol. Like all Americans, I am outraged by the violence, lawlessness, and mayhem.
So outraged,
I immediately deployed the National Guard."
I thought he didn't condemn him 5 seconds ago. You lying gutless fuck.
Both of you
is
let Paul finish.
Is that condemning? Is that condemning?
I don't call it condemning if he ends up, and I don't call it condemning if he ends up after the fact pardoning every
do you
single.
know how much violence actually was on January 6th? Do you know how much violence actually was there?
I'd say there's six violence, six whole
violence.
violence.
There was about 170 people charged with assaulting a law enforcement officer.
Were any of them charged with insurrection, fuckhead?
Nope, it was seditious conspiracy.
None of them were charged with insurrection, fuckhead. Not a single one.
170
good thing no one's clowning
Were
about
any of
that.
them charged with insurrection?
Andrew, you're boxing shadows right now. No one's talking about insurrection.
Yes, that's what you guys just said. You just said it was a seditious insurrection 5 seconds ago.
No, I said seditious conspiracy. That's not the same thing as insurrection.
Oh, so it wasn't an insurrection?
I said it was seditious conspiracy.
So I just want to be clear then, it wasn't an insurrection?
I'd say that any definition that I use of insurrection, you won't be happy with.
I just want to make sure that
no.
we're clear.
I want to make sure.
Was it an insurrection or not?
Nah, it was a seditious conspiracy, at least by the legal terms.
So it wasn't an insurrection. Got it.
There's nothing inconsistent about this. You can completely condemn the violence that occurred, which
and then
Donald
pardon
Trump
them afterwards. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That sounds like a dog whistle to me, John. I don't know. I mean, he's speaking out of both sides of his mouth. On one side, he said condemn. On the other side, he said you guys did nothing wrong.
How would you know? You won't let him finish what he's saying.
Everyone, I'm going to let John Paul go first, and then Soy, you can respond.
Yeah, my understanding is you have people who are outside of the Capitol who are recording it. Some people who are even let inside the building, almost walking in like a tour, not really causing
I feel bad
much
for this
violence.
kid.
Who go and
he lives in
serve
Berkeley, guys. I think he can be
years of jail
saved. I'm going to get lunch with him.
Along with other people who maybe, like, if they were violent, they also served jail time. And you can pardon those people on the basis that you think that they were either serving a term that was way too long, which was the case when you have many people who were simply trespassing, for instance, spending years and years of jail time and fines. And you can pardon those people while also saying that the violence was absolutely outrageous. And Vincent, you said that Donald Trump never condemned the January 6th attack, when I just read to you the statement he released right after, calling it a heinous attack, saying what he did to try to stop it, and condemning the violence.
Yeah, John, how can you possibly think
how many
that he
years
believes... Wait, hold on. I thought I got to
years
respond. Corbin, please, can I respond? Yeah, how can you claim that he thinks the violence is outrageous if he thinks they did nothing wrong and pardon them for it? If he's pardoning everyone, like, I agree, there are people in there that maybe shouldn't be in jail for 20 years for trespassing or whatever ridiculous thing, but someone who's committing seditious conspiracy, planning to overthrow the government, someone who like beat up police officers, any of these violent rioters are also pardoned. How can you possibly say that he thinks that violence is outrageous if he thinks you should get zero punishment for it?
He did not pardon every single individual, but additionally, what I'm going to do actually is I'm going to steel man your position. I'm going to assume that you are completely correct in what you're saying. There's two main problems. The one main problem is that whenever we give actions done by Kamala Harris and other politicians, we see you and Vincent constantly is saying like, oh, well, she condemned the actions.
No,
so
wait,
okay.
John, to be clear, in good faith, I asked you
defense.
this. Can you show me the person that she retweeted in this fund? And if they did something that was a violent action, I actually agree with you. I would say that is the closest thing that you have shown me to a left-winger saying tacitly that violence is okay by bailing them out. I've actually said that. For all these other things, every single left-wing politician is saying this is awful, we condemn it, and their actions are not indicating anything otherwise. They're not pardoning violent people. But if you do show me that specific fund and the specific person and what they did was violent, yeah, I'd say, yeah, that is actually tacitly endorsing violence, and I wouldn't agree with that. But that is, in totality, so far fewer than all of these examples we brought to you on the right.
Can I make sure I got this right? So if I show you a bunch of tweets from left-wing politicians post Kirk's death, who literally strawman his positions and say that he was a racist fascist, you don't consider that to be some sort of like...
I'd say that's a pretty accurate description of objective reality. No, I don't think
so. So the thing is like, that's not them basically giving a pass, right?
No, it's not, because they don't say we need to kill these people. They don't say that that's the only option to dealing with these people.
Hang on. I just want to make sure so I get this right. So when it comes to Charlie Kirk, they can condemn the violence out of one side of their mouth, and then on the other side, they can say that, well, but he was a racist, misogynist Nazi, right? But John Paul, when he brings up, well, okay, Trump can condemn the violence, right?
But he can
also
pardon
give them
violence.
pardons, but also give them pardons later on because he thought that the prison sentences were far too stiff. Why is it that you think that argument would work against John, but not against you?
Because you would have to show me left-wing politicians pardoning people committing violence, which is why I gave up the example. If you're showing her saying, let's bail out people who committed violence, I would say, yes, that is pretty similar and something I would not be okay with, versus people accurately describing his ideology, which you say it can only lead to violence, which you actually had to caveat and say, well, it's only going to lead to violence because although everyone really understands that's not necessarily the the only way you can deal with a fascist. A bunch of crazy people are going to get the wrong idea, but the crazy people on the right, when Donald Trump calls us fascists, I mean, they don't listen to him. Like, I just don't understand how you think these two things are even close to equal.
Okay, so if you want
that's
an
not
example,
an
the
argument.
direct
That was just
example-
paddling.
Hold on.
No, you just didn't understand it. I understand.
Was Kamala Harris promoted the Minnesota Freedom Fund, and which was set to bail out protesters, and among those you have George Howard, who was bailed out on August 6th, who was arrested on a domestic violence charge, and then later that month on August 29th, he was arrested again, accused of murder in a shooting. And so you have Kamala Harris retweeting the Minnesota Freedom Fund and telling people to donate to it.
No, you don't have to explain further. I completely agree.
Like
I think that was incredibly irresponsible of Kamala Harris. I think that contributed. I could say you could even tie this directly to her and other politicians who retweeted this stuff for all of the violence that came out of anyone bailed out by that fund. I would say, ideologically consistent, that is not okay. In the same way that Joe Biden mass pardoned these, like, a bunch of drug dealers who may now go out and do more crime. I think that is awful. But if we're going to talk about what? Well, I don't know if I think his son's reformed. His son is reformed. I don't think he's ever going to commit another crime. All right. Yeah. I think he's good. All right. Hunter Biden is a straight shooter. Biden 2028. Okay. He's totally straight shooter. But the problem is, if we're looking at this,
that wasn't corrupt though, right?
No, I think it was. I think it was. Okay. That's the whole point. Is we're able to call out our own fucking side.
But you did vote for Biden, right?
And yeah, it's called. I'm able to make an analysis of which of these things is absolutely worse.
Would you have voted for him for a second term post him?
I would vote for Obama for a 5th term, actually. In fact, I'm voting for Obama.
Yeah, without the trolling, can you just answer my question?
Oh, yeah, it's not trolling when we're talking about fucking political violence, and now we're going about Hunter Biden's son and all the crimes he's doing.
Well, I'm just looking for consistency.
The fucking weeds about this.
I'm just looking for consistency.
Well, yeah, but every time I try to pry you for consistency, you have to keep running away and saying, well,
I've answered all of your questions,
I'm not cherry picking. I just want to agree with this part of the study that agrees with me.
I have to mention this. Okay, so this is the biggest concession of the debate.
Yeah, because we're good faith enough to say this is a bad thing. You will not say this, by the way. You'll agree with my premise. You will not say this about Trump, will you?
You're going to filibuster, right?
No, I really appreciate the consistency, and I appreciate that you're willing to concede this. I'm saying this is the biggest, most substantial concession of the debate, because the Antifa and BLM riots of 2020 was the largest scope and scale of political violence, sustained political violence that we've seen in modern U.S. history. And when you have the vice president, the running vice president, and then the future leader of the party posting Minnesota Freedom Fund to bail out people like George Howard.
When was George Howard released?
Shut your fucking mouth. Let him finish, Vince.
No.
August 6th. August 6th, he was bailed out. August 6th,
let him
finish.
When was it, John?
John Paul, go.
John, let me ask you something.
Vince, just let John finish his thing, and then you can ask your question.
All right. I respect you, Corbin. Good.
Yeah, Vince. Shut up.
Shut the fuck up, Andrew.
He's one of many. I encourage you to look into the reports themselves. The fact is that Kamala Harris posted and encouraged people to donate to the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which was an organization that was bailing out these violent people. That's one example. If I looked into it more, and I'm free to look into it more after this debate and give you all the examples of all the people who were arrested under violent charges and how that is directly that's monumentally impactful when Kamala Harris is the one posting this in the face of the Antifa and BLM riots, which are burning down cities, injuring officers, killing people. Yeah, once again, $2+ billion of damage. Somehow we're going to completely ignore the $2+ billion of damage when we're talking about responsibility and political violence. We have an actor in the mainstream left-wing political landscape who is functioning in such a way that is endorsing, rationalizing, excusing, tolerating the violence that we have seen. You can say that she condemns it, but when she condemns it and posts the Minnesota Freedom Fund, you have a glaring contradiction on your hands.
Okay, so real quick, Vince, I have to answer this because we're talking, you're right, about political violence. So, for example, the specific instance you say, which I said was bad. Yeah, what?
Dude, I promised Vince he could go, and he
hasn't spoken.
I just want to respond to this one quick thing. I just want to make a small little asterisk to what John Paul is saying about George Howard. George Howard was released in 2021, a year after the tweet from Kamala Harris. It had nothing to do with the BLM protests. So again, at the time, Kamala Harris had no idea about this George Howard thing because it didn't even exist yet. So again, you want to bring up the George Howard incident. This is just a proxy of the actual bail fund itself and what it became, not what it was at the time in which Kamala Harris supported it. I just want to make that asterisk.
Yeah, I'm not making the claim that Kamala Harris specifically wanted to bail out George Howard. I'm making the claim that she's supporting a group that is functioning in such a way that is bailing out people like George Howard.
Right.
After.
So to be clear,
that is the function
bailing out
of
people
the group
like
that she is promoting.
Right.
That's
and this is, and I want to grant this.
Contested, Vince.
Yeah, hold on, Andrew. I do want to. I want to grant it. Let's just say that she helped promote this fund, and one of the many people, for example, I would want to see like to what degree these people are being bailed out for, like the protesters who are arrested in L.A. being in the wrong place at the wrong time, or doing violence, like throwing Molotov cocktails or burning down police cars or whatever. That's pretty important as to why they're doing this. But let's be clear. Hold on. Let's be clear, because I do want to say this. Let's just say that she specifically did this, and this guy was released because of this bail fund, like the day after the tweet. What's happening here is the political violence that is happening afterwards would have to be the downstream effects of how she's doing this. Now, I think the chilling effect, or I guess the opposite of the chilling effect, is, hey, protesters, if you get arrested, we're going to let you go. This is what I'm conceding and agreeing. Yeah, that is something that could potentially like encourage people to go out and riot and protest again in a violent way if those violent people are the ones being released. But this guy, in the example you like cited, he didn't go out and do another political violence. He went out and fucking killed some random person, which has absolutely nothing to do with BLM. So you would have to show, one, when you keep citing, oh, well, this BLM thing, it's all this billions of dollars of damage, which was bad, by the way. I'm not trying to say that was okay. It's somehow downstream of political violence when you can say that a lot of this was rioting and people taking advantage of people protesting. And yeah, it was mostly peaceful, as much as you guys fucking hate that. Just statistically, that's true. But after all that, and me and my good faith willing to say, yeah, if she does this and lets them out, that's potentially a chilling effect and letting people go and do it more. You will never, ever say the same about Trump pardoning violent January 6 people. Why not?
Yeah, so
I actually did grant that to you.
Oh, you did? Okay, thank God.
I did steal man your argument. I said, even if that's the case.
No, don't steel man it. I'm literally saying this is not a steel man. This is me admitting I think that if Kamala Harris is saying, hey, protesters, it's okay if you go do violence, in some ways, if they release violent protesters, will kind of give the signal to certain other people that they might be able to commit violence for, and I don't think that's okay. I'm not asking you to steel man me. I'm saying, do you think that Donald Trump pardoning violent people is going to then encourage them to go and do violence again?
I would say that these are distinctly different situations, and so
it's always different.
Well, I mean, only when things are different, though, then they're different because they're not the same.
Yeah, it's on the right.
It's only because when things are different, though, Vince. So anyway, here's why. So you what you're actually trying to argue right now, Soy Phil, is that more people will do political violence because they just don't mind getting in prison for 4 fucking years before they might potentially get a pardon one day.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking crazy, one. And the second issue here, Soy, which is really funny, is he's right. You made the biggest concession of the debate, which is that you guys have now acknowledged that there's bail funds all over the place that do indeed. If you just concede that they're doing this with some people who are violent and bailing them out, right? Show me the right-wing equivalent. Go ahead.
I don't have to show you the right wing equivalent
because
to talk about the scale of political violence. First of all, we're specifically talking about one bail fund specifically retweeted one time by one politician, and we're talking about those politicians. And the reason I'm willing to concede that is because I have intellectual consistency, but you guys are like, oh, these people that Donald Trump had tried to overthrow an election for him and got released as soon as he had the political power to do it.
How many years in prison did they spend?
Oh, 4 whole years. Well, I guess if Donald Trump has promised to pardon us, we'll never do it again. We'll never do a political violence. It's absolutely fucking ridiculous. And I don't know if you're just stupid or bad faith, but it's kind of depressing.
If you go and you start rioting in the Capitol, right, you'll spend 4 years in prison and maybe one day you'll get pardoned.
Andrew, do you think that if they were successful and Donald Trump had become president, he would have pardoned them right away?
Let me ask the fucking question.
I've got the equivalent.
Let me respond.
Right? You'll spend 4 fucking years in prison, right? And by the way, in horrific conditions in comparison to the crime you're convicted of, okay, horrific conditions for a lot of these people. You would not have agreed with it, and you guys would be bad faith if you said that you would, with the type of conditions that they got for what it was that they were actually prosecuted for. So the thing here that's funny is, like, No, I don't think it's signaling to anybody, hey, if you go, you'll spend 4 fucking years in prison and maybe hopefully one day get a pardon, as opposed to a bail fund, which has you out in fucking 2 days.
Well, to be clear, he was out a year
Not-
later,
not to
Andrew. I
mention-
don't know if you were listening for that part, but also you're
No, I'm
talking
not
about
saying- talking about
including the
that
seditious
specific
conspiracy
example.
people who had
I'm
like
not talking
committed
about
it
that
and got
specific
sentenced for
example.
22 years, and that's somehow not enough. And the only reason that he didn't pardon them is either one, it wasn't politically expedient, and two, he didn't succeed in overthrowing the fucking election. They probably would have spent a couple months in jail if he actually had. So,
Soy Pill, how many years do you think they should have spent?
Enrique Tarrio, I don't know. What's the average for seditious conspiracy?
Okay, not him. How about the other ones?
I don't know about the other ones. I'd have to go look.
Yeah, you only know one?
Are you going to specifically pick apart whether or not I know the violent threat for one of these people? And if not, then my entire argument about whether or not these people shouldn't have been pardoned for committing violence is wrong.
Should they have gotten life?
I don't think everyone should have gotten life for committing violence at a riot.
4 years. 4 years, a long time in prison, man.
I'd say 4 years is not enough for a lot of these people.
There's also
Come on, 4 years.
There's a massive difference here. The reason why this is also one of the biggest concessions of the debate is because Kamala Harris posted the Minnesota Freedom Fund during the riots. What does that say to you? The riots are a sustained large portion of time. Even if I concede everything you're saying about January 6th, that was one day.
Hey, what's worse, overthrowing the Democratic election or $2 billion of property damage?
We're talking about responsibility and impact of the political parties. I am not excusing, like Andrew said, we completely condemn all and any political violence.
Do you condemn January 6th, John?
Exactly wrong, which is why it is wrong when during the
John, do you condemn January 6th?
Riots of Antifa and BLM, when you're posting bailout funds to help people who are protesting and who are in the riots to get out of jail. Like, what does that say?
So again, you're incapable of understanding that you're conflating protesting, violence, violent crime, and all of the other things that are incorporated in this bail fund. You're completely incapable of separating these things.
Dude.
And when I say it is completely 100% okay for Donald Trump to pardon some of these trespassers, you can't even fucking condemn January 6th. You understand how fucking insane and unhinged and asymmetrical this is. You have made zero concessions, not because you're more right. It's because the only way you can even possibly get into our brains is to say you're steelmanning us, when I am saying, yes, Kamala Harris potentially releasing a violent criminal or helping in doing that is sending some sort of signal, and that is not okay. And you're like, well, we win because we don't want to actually do the good faith thing and understanding that the January 6th stuff is fucked up. Andrew says 4 years is enough. I guess if you have the fucking brain of a goldfish and you walk back and forth, like, it's totally fine. It seems like a fucking eternity. But some of these people actually did violent, awful things.
If only I were just a little bit smarter, I would understand.
Dude, you're self-admittedly like average IQ. I don't know why
that's
you're
true.
going
So
off
where
about
does
that?
So where the fuck does that put you? The thing is so funny here is like you've been trounced every debate we've ever had, and including this one.
Oh, right.
I'm
sorry. If I declare victory, I won, Andrew. I win. So I win. No, actually, I won every debate.
The funny, yeah. The
just to be clear, I'm declaring it right now. I won every debate we've ever had.
The funniest part about all this is like, how bad faith can you be when you try to make a comparison between somebody who tweets out a bail fund while rioting's going on, clear signal, and somebody who gives a pardon after evidence comes out
as soon as he has the ability to do it? Yeah,
like,
exactly.
how are these things even comparable, Soy?
Yeah, because one of these people actually did something that was, I'm going to pardon people that I know did violence against this country and probably deserve to be in jail for what they're doing. And the other person retweeted the bail fund, and you haven't even established that a majority of these people were violent. You've pointed out to one person who did a completely non-related political act after, and even then, I'm still granting you, you know what? I don't think that's okay to retweet that bail fund, because that might be signaling to people that violence is okay. And you can't even fucking admit that January 6th was bad. That's how fucking bad faith you guys are.
That's I mentioned earlier. I literally mentioned earlier that even if it's like, and I will agree, the vast majority of people did not burn down buildings and loot stores.
Would you say that's mostly peaceful then?
Okay, mostly peaceful means $2+ billion of damages, thousands of officers injured, and many. Can
you imagine how many billions it would have been if they all weren't peaceful? That would have been crazy.
In scale, because if we're going to judge things based off of mostly peaceful, then both sides are mostly peaceful. And if you want to judge based on,
I said that at the beginning,
based on the scope and impact that these have had, that has been the core framework of the debate. How much impact have these had? How many issues and problems have the left caused as from political violence? You haven't mentioned any that is even remotely close to the destruction we saw in the Antifa.
Not even in the same universe, by the way.
Okay, so I've got some stats for you. So among the felony pleas,
did you chat GPT them? Can you be honest? Did you chat GPT them? Did you chat GPT him,
130
Vince?
that pled to obstructing law enforcement and 69 that pled to assaulting law enforcement with a dangerous or deadly weapon.
Okay, I'm going to go into all these with you, but did you chat GPT him? My chat wants to know, Vince.
When we look at seditious conspiracy,
I'm just going to ask you again when you're done.
Conspiracy, Soy, if I'm not mistaken, I believe Enrique Antario was either convicted. I think he was convicted of seditious conspiracy. So again, this wasn't as a matter of law. It was settled that they had done this particular crime. And so if Donald Trump was super about trying to uphold the rule of law, then he would have done so.
Anyway, real quick, before I answer to this, did you chat GPT all that? The truth. Tell me the truth.
Yeah. So I had to look it up because the Department of Justice nuked that. Actually, if you go to the source,
so I'm debating with an AI. I'm debating with an AI right
Well,
now.
I didn't chat GPT this. I just looked up. Assault with a deadly weapon could carry a sentence of anywhere up to 20 years. So 4 doesn't seem like nearly enough. So.
Yeah, and if Andrew wants to provide anything to go against the 172, you're more than welcome to do so.
Yeah. Okay, repeat the argument. I'm sorry. I want to get the answer to my question first. Go ahead. What was the argument?
The argument is that 172 people pled guilty to assaulting law enforcement. You had 130 that pled guilty to obstructing law enforcement during civil disorder. 69 that pled to assaulting law enforcement with a dangerous or deadly weapon, and 4 pled to seditious conspiracy. So by matter of law, they were found guilty and have done those said crimes.
Do you agree with me that those are federal crimes? Were they federal crimes?
They were federal crimes. Yes.
Yeah, and what is the prosecutorial victory rate in federal cases?
See, here's the funny thing about this, right? Is that Andrew Wilson now is going to say, just because Donald Trump can do something doesn't change the fact.
I wasn't going to say any of that.
Look at the contrast. Okay,
Bro,
so what is the federal?
It feels bad when they assume your position, doesn't it?
Dude, if you would just calm the fuck down and answer the questions, we can get through it.
Is significantly high.
Oh, fuck.
Completely a non sequitur from the fact that Donald Trump himself sat there and said,
okay, so hang on. Let's back up.
Yeah,
because you froze. Because you froze, right? The federal conviction rate is significantly higher, right?
Correct.
So if it's the case that federal prosecutors went to these people and told them, and they had their lawyers there, and said to them, if you plead guilty, you're going to get a lesser sentence to this versus if we take you to trial here on this. And then you're going to get a much stiffer sentence. This is usually how that works. Do you agree with me?
By that same logic, then we would say that every single person in the federal court system that pled guilty is also due to have their themselves pardoned as well because it was a faulty conviction.
No, I'm not saying. I'm not even saying it's a faulty conviction. Just calm down, dude. You keep jumping. If you wouldn't jump the how the fuck am I supposed to have a debate with this guy?
Andrew, let me ask you a question. Okay. In the eyes of the law, if you plead guilty, does that mean that you had committed that crime in the eyes of the law? Yes.
In the eyes of the law, sure.
Okay, then. So then, if they did commit that crime,
does that mean though that in fact you did? Does that mean in fact you did though?
By necessity, it does.
No, it does. By necessity, it doesn't. If I pled guilty to a rape but never committed the rape, did I commit the rape?
Yes.
I don't even know where to go with that. I'm all done with you, bro. I'm all done with you. Okay.
You work your way. And
I'm done, dude. No, I don't. Listen, that's the best soundbite I'll ever get from this fucking debate.
To be clear, Andrew, I saw a clip of you on whatever talking about how much you rape. So I know it was a weird definition of it, but
yeah. So again, the idea here is that
you're really so if your girlfriend woke you up with a blowjob, she's raping you, Soy. I just want to make sure I got that clear. Yeah, I just want to make sure I got that clear. But anyway,
if I didn't say yes, absolutely, that's right.
Yeah, I can't. I don't know where to go with that with you, man. We live in completely different paradigms.
That's great. We do, and that's been exhibited throughout this entire thing. So when we look at again Donald Trump saying. Again, we've seen the left where they say they condemn it and then they go in and they actually arrest these individuals and let the court system work its way through the courts. Now, if you did not commit these crimes, then guess what? There's an appellate process that you can go through to appeal those particular things. And then if all of a sudden at the end, it's found that there was a faulty conviction or something, then it should work its way through the courts. If Donald Trump actually cared about the rule of law, if Donald Trump actually did want to condemn political violence, then he would not have pardoned these individuals. But the fact that he did shows exactly where his cards are and where he
Oh, great.
Fucking deep state, man.
I know. The swamp is just muting Vince.
I don't know. To be clear, he agreed to do a debate in a hotel, which I would never do. I don't trust those hotels.
Yeah.
You know how that's where the fucking Chinese agents get you.
But Vince, could you repeat what you were saying before you cut out?
Oh yeah, no, you're good. All I'm saying is by necessity, Donald Trump saying that he can, if he did, and it seems like he did, condemn what happened on Jan 6th, and he would have let the court system work its way through the entire process. And if there was something that and again, I want to mention this as well. That's really interesting. You can't sit here and tell me that all 1,600 defendants had a faulty issue. That's absurd, in my opinion, especially in the eyes of the law. If you want to say that there's a few defendants that may have been, had some sort of legal issue, by all means. I'm not opposed to saying that a president is able to pardon who they want to pardon, but all 1,600, and
it's insane. Like,
not just
why?
That, we also saw them take.
Like, I don't want to not be a human being, but it sucks so much that if I grant even a modicum of good faith, they abuse it and will refuse to grant even a little bit. But like, I don't know. It's not in me to lie about it. Like,
okay. Oh, I saw Soy Pill talking, so I thought it was muted.
No, sorry. I was talking to the chat real quick.
Yeah, that's all I was saying. It's just again, and again, I'm glad Soy Pill asked if you condemned January 6th or not. So,
I mean, by the standard of justice that you just gave me, we can't even actually have a conversation about this. It's not even possible, just so you know.
What is the standard of justice that I provided?
You just got done saying to me that if a black man was falsely convicted of raping a white woman.
Wait, you changed it to black man, Andrew, to be clear. You didn't
my turn. My turn. My turn.
He's changing it. He's slick.
Shut up.
Shut up and go.
That if it was the case that a black man was falsely, and I'll give you a famous case of this, convicted of raping a white woman, that as long as he was convicted, he in fact raped the white woman. And so because of this, I can no longer actually even take you seriously as an interlocutor. We can't even have a serious conversation.
That's not what he said, first of all. He said
how could that be bad faith? It's the same shit.
No, you said convicted. He said pled guilty. That was
I believe he's using
so if a black man pled guilty in that case, he did still actually rape her? What?
That is what you said, Vince.
What are you talking about? Where do you guys live? What reality do you guys live in?
Don't say you guys, because to be clear, that's not what I think, and that's
I mean,
that's not what happened with the Central
you have
Part
to agree
5,
with me that was the dumbest shit you've ever heard.
I think he phrased it poorly, but I think I understand what he's trying to say.
I mean, that was really fucking stupid, even on a scale. I know I'm just average IQ and stuff, Soy, but that was really fucking stupid.
Andrew said and agreed with me that in the eyes of the law, if you plead guilty, then you have done that said crime. Now, I understand.
No.
And I did
you did say that, to be clear.
That's great. No, Andrew, that's great. So I'm going to continue speaking. So what happened is that I also said, if you did not commit said crime and you believe you are falsely accused, there is a process by which you can redeem yourself through that process. If you don't believe
that's not what you said, bro. No.
You said
not even in the same
universe. Did you commit that crime? And yes, you did commit that crime.
No, doofus. Here's what happened.
Good.
I asked if you're convicted for a crime. If you in fact committed it, and you said as long as it's the case that you were convicted, then you did in fact commit it. No, that's not what the question was. You bad faith lying.
The fact.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Okay. Clearly, he just means in the eye of the law. I don't think he's so obtuse that he thinks that you just did it because the law said you did.
Bro,
obviously, he understands there's exonerations.
You guys are coping real bad on this one.
You can't keep saying you. First of all, I didn't say it, but it's very clear what he's saying, and you're like bad faith. Like you've lifted the goalpost and chucked them across the fucking field.
He's backtracking his whole position. I'm the one who's bad faith.
He never. I don't think he really. Do you really think he believes that people who are convicted are just automatically guilty?
I think he was caught in the basic logic trap, and he bit the bullet.
You got it, dude.
He's a dipshit.
The logic trap.
I think he's a dipshit, and he bit the bullet. That's what I think.
By necessity, me saying that someone should work its way through the appellate process is me recognizing that there are individuals. I'm saying is a matter of fact in the law. The law looks at it as this is a fact that you have committed said crime. It does not mean that you actually did necessarily. That is what I am saying. So when you said it is a fact, yes, it is a fact in the eyes of the law. If you're asking me to clarify, then that is what I am saying. That is why I'm acknowledging that there is an appellate process by necessity.
But did you in fact commit the crime?
In fact of the law, yes, because that's
not what I'm asking.
Okay, Andrew, let me ask you something, Andrew.
Andrew, you understand your question is like, yes, it's dumb the way you answered it, but your question is so stupid that he couldn't even conceive that you would think that he thinks that no matter what, if the law says it, it's true, like just objectively reality. Obviously, he doesn't think that.
Hang on. I'll clarify. So I would even grant this. except for this problem that he asked me, do you think that in the eyes of the law, if you plead guilty to something, you're guilty in the eyes of the law? My answer was yes, of course. But you agree that that doesn't mean in fact you're guilty.
Okay,
and he was like, and so hang on. And so he clarified. And then I said, so in fact, would you be guilty? And Dummy said, yes. Like,
yes,
what do you want me to do with that, bro?
I thought that was weird. And now he's clarified. It's very clear he doesn't think that.
I think it's a backtrack.
But
Andrew,
dude, do you really think? Come on, dude. No one fucking thinks that. He just didn't understand.
They do think that, I think.
You think, just to be clear, you think Vince Wilson doesn't believe that an exoneration is ever possible? That's what you believe.
No, I think
there was a frame of moment in your time where like this guy thinks that judges can manipulate reality to their will.
I think he
that's
was
what you
biting
thought.
The bullet because he didn't want to make a concession that they could have been convicted, and if they were convicted, that they could in fact have not been actually guilty of the crime itself.
To be clear, you think all the January 6ers are not guilty of any crime?
I think most of them were not guilty of any crime. Yeah,
all of them.
Most.
There were no January 6ers that did any violence.
No, there were people on January 6th who did conduct some forms of violence.
Yeah,
and yes, absolutely, I think that there should have been some sort of punishment for them. Trump condemned them, right? This should not have happened.
Okay, but should they have pardoned them?
The thing is like, well, on a case-by-case basis, not all of them did get pardoned.
One of them who did a violent, seditious conspiracy, should he be pardoned?
What did he do that was actually violent?
Plan to overthrow the government by getting the Proud Boys to go in and try to kidnap.
No, not what he was convicted of.
To be clear, Enrique Tarrio wasn't even there. He planned this violence from a different location. So
what violence did they do then?
They broke into the fucking Capitol and tried to kidnap politicians. It's in the fucking
violence.
plan.
What actual violence did they do? Tell me.
They're assaulting police officers and breaking into the Capitol
and
trying to go after
the politicians. They assaulted police officers?
That's part of my claim. Do you want to address the entire thing, or are you going to pick one thing?
Demonstrate that the Proud Boys were assaulting police officers on J6. Go ahead. I just want to make sure that we're clear.
To be clear, this was because of my question was, do you think that everyone deserves to be pardoned? Does everything... No. Every single time that I pin you down on something, you try to ask a question and weasel your little way out of it, weasel your little Wilson. I'm asking you...
asked me the question, I answered it,
asked
you fucking
you,
idiot.
were there people that committed violence on Jan 6? You said, well, I think most of them weren't. And then I said, do you think anyone did? You said, yes. And I said, should they be pardoned? And you said, well, I have to go on a case-by-case basis. So just to be clear, do you think that...
brought those cases up, stupid.
Just to be clear, Andrew... Do you think that every single person who was pardoned was justified in being pardoned? Not a single one of them was supposed to serve out the rest of their sentence. No, Andrew, can you please answer that question? So does every single person, whether every single person was pardoned justly? Can you answer that?
I haven't seen any evidence to the contrary.
Okay, cool. That's what I'm looking for. Now, anyway, I'll go look that up if you really want me to.
Yeah, I really
I'm
want
already trying to find it.
I know. Chat GPT is not helping you.
No,
though, right?
I'm on right now. No, I can look. I'll look it up on Chat GPT if you want. I was trying to avoid that just to.
You might as well use it now. I mean, once you're in it, you're in it.
Okay. All right, I'll use ChatGPT for you.
All right, you can go ahead and look that up. Again, so I'm a little frustrated that as many concessions as we're even able to give, which is, hey, in this one specific instance of a specific tweet, this might be something that might encourage more rioting and violence, and potentially we can condemn that. In fact, I do. I say if this was at all responsible for any additional rioting or violence afterwards, I think she was a little irresponsible for promoting this bail fund. But when we get down into the nitty-gritty of, well, I don't know which people committed violence where, and maybe this pardon, even though he didn't have the ability to do it for 4 years, well, he did it after 4 years, so it's okay. And also, I don't explicitly condemn the violence because really it wasn't that bad. A majority of the people weren't there. It was a mostly peaceful insurrection or whatever you want to call it. So I just don't understand why I even give you a crumb of good faith when you're unwilling to admit even the slightest of a thing that promotes this as asymmetrical at all.
That's really funny
it's
because
fucking insane.
The questions that you asked for the concessions on, you got. So what was the bad faith part?
Do you condemn January 6th?
You asked the concession.
That was my question that you still
asked.
Do you guys condemn the violence on January 6th?
I already told you, of course, just like Trump.
Okay, cool.
What part of that concession?
Would you part and then
hang
on. Them?
But hang on. So this whole diatribe you just
do you think that him pardon? No, wait, hold on.
My turn.
No,
my turn.
Wait, hold on.
My turn.
No, because that's not the concession. Is do you think pardoning them?
My turn.
No, Andrew, it's not your turn because you're trying to walk away with something I haven't said yet. No, you got to listen to me. No, Corbin, you've been so biased towards him. Let me talk a little bit. Come on, man.
I will mute you if you don't shut the fuck up.
Fine, go ahead, Andrew.
That's right, Soy. So this whole diatribe that you just went on about how we were bad faith and made no concessions, you just had backpedal on 15 seconds because both of us said any violence on J15 we condemn.
Okay,
Just
now,
like Trump
do you
did.
think that pardoning them is going to perpetuate that in any way, shape, or form, or encourage them? You said no, right? Because that's the actual concession in
It
the argument as
seems
to whether or not the
unlikely,
actions and
yes.
hold on, it's my turn now, Andrew. Whether or not
I
the
was answering
actions
your
of the
question.
no, you're not answering my question. I know you're not going to do it, but I'm going to try. Maybe John
Okay,
will
go
answer
ahead.
this. The point is that the actions of the politicians. So
Mhm.
Kamala Harris explicitly condemning it. You won't ever grant us that that's enough. But now you're saying that Trump doing it is enough. But when I say that Kamala Harris specifically, this is the concession, is allowing these people potentially to get bail for potentially violent actions, which potentially might cause more violent actions to happen. That is a concession. Are you going to concede that any of the rhetoric or the actions of President Trump or any of the Republicans at all might encourage more of this violence?
We have not seen that.
Yeah,
it is
okay,
the
that's
case.
the concession. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Andrew.
Wait,
That was great.
hang on. I
Oh,
wasn't-
we've been
let
so
me-
good faith.
Let me at least answer before you start doing the fucking joyride. So
Oh, God.
the thing is like, if you can demonstrate a link like we just did to you,
You still haven't
between
demonstrated the link
between
with
the
Kamala
Republican-
Harris.
Between this
You haven't
Republican
demonstrated the link
rhetoric,
with Kamala Harris.
shh, between the Republican rhetoric and what's going on, you can show me the equivalent of, hey, fascist catch. You can show me the equivalent of all these people who are saying that this type of rhetoric, at least in their own little manifestos, they seem to be sourcing it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Show me the fucking equivalence, you fuck.
Oh,
Show
that's so
me.
crazy. No, you're right. I
Answer
read the
this
Tyler
question.
Robinson
I'm just
bullets,
gonna-
and it
I'm just gonna
said
say one
Kamala
sentence, one
Harris's
sentence.
bail fund is the reason I'm shooting Charlie Kirk. I totally remember that happening. I totally forgot. Sorry, you got me.
Wait,
No,
wait,
no,
wait.
you
What does
missed
that have
the
to do with
point. You missed the
anything?
point.
Because
No,
you're
you
saying
didn't miss
you
the
haven't shown
point.
the
You're-
link,
and
and
you
I'm
didn't miss
saying
the
I haven't
point.
even
He just is
conceded
avoiding the point.
that
He's
Kamala
just
Harris was
avoiding it.
directly responsible for this. I'm saying it was irresponsible for her to promote a bail fund that may have resulted in more violence. And the link that you showed was a guy getting released a year later, not from this bail fund, and doing a completely non-political violent act. That's what you're hinging on.
Wait, I thought that you granted that even if this was the case, in order to look for the logical consistency, and we were completely consistent.
Yes,
now
I
you're
did,
backtracking a second time.
But now, no, I'm
Now
saying
you're
that is
backtracking
something
again,
to
Soy?
condemn. I'm saying that to condemn, and now you're saying, well, I refuse to condemn Trump for these actions because you have to establish the link. You haven't established the link with Kamala Harris. I'm just assuming this could have had
Okay.
downstream actions, and it's worth saying
Do
that's
you
bad.
agree with
and
me?
you
Okay.
refuse to concede that Donald
Well,
Trump pardoning
let's find
people
out if
doing
this is true.
seditious conspiracy
Yeah.
may or may not lead to more violence
Let's
later.
find out if this is true. Do you think that if there's a bail fund present during these riots,
Mhm.
that the likelihood that people will show up to them increases or fucking decreases?
I'd say it increases, Andrew.
Okay, that's it then, Soy, you
Okay,
fuck.
that's the link.
Here's-
All right,
okay,
Andrew,
here's-
if you
here's the
say
point
that
that
you
you're
get
avoiding.
pardoned
I
prematurely for
need to-
crimes
I
that
need
you
to
committed
mention
against
this.
the
Let me mention
government,
Paul.
would you
Real-
say the
real-
likelihood that
real
they would
fast.
do it
The
again
distinction-
based on
the
the
key
rhetoric of the
distinction-
president
so
increases
hold
or
on,
decreases,
hold on.
Andrew?
So
You're not
the
listening.
mod
So
says it's my
you-
turn to speak.
Oh yes, so you've been speaking a good bit. John hasn't
Dude, he
spoken
literally
too much.
addressed me. Come on, Corbin.
Okay, there's a
Just
massive
let John go,
distinction
and then
here
you
when
can
you
speak.
post a
Okay.
bail fund
Mhm.
during the riots
Okay.
and pardoning someone years after. Like,
Mhm.
so my question:
What's
can
the
you
difference?
Name a single. Can you name?
What's
a
the
single
difference,
act
John?
of
No,
violence?
John, what's the
Here, I'll
difference?
tell you the difference.
Tell me the difference.
The difference is when there's riots going on and the
Yep.
rioters see the bail fund,
Yep.
they say maybe I can just do more riots.
Okay.
And I can get away with this.
Do you
If
think
any
that there is
evidence
no
to prove that
indication that
is
when someone
over,
gets
when-
pardoned for a
hold
crime
on,
that
that's
they
the
did
first
that they
half.
would never
When
ever
January
ever
6th
try to
is
do it
over,
again, John?
When January 6th is over and 4 years later you pardon the people, what violence has it? Okay.
What
can you
general
name a
election
single act
did
of
they
violence?
have
Can
to
you
try to
link a
overthrow,
single
John?
act of
What
violence?
ECA did they have to
let
try
me-
to stop?
this
They
is
have
the
to
most
wait
important
until
question.
2028.
This is the most important question. It's the most important
John,
question.
how could they
Can you
possibly
link-
try the
let
crime?
me-
John,
let me-
how could
I
they
gotta get
possibly?
this
John,
question out. I
John,
gotta get
how
this
could they?
question out.
John,
Hold on.
I-
Sorry,
John?
John, just let John go again.
Let John go
quick, and then
again?
you respond.
He's
No,
asking me a
I
question.
mean, let him finish, and then
He
you
did
can go.
finish. Oh
Let
my
him
God,
finish,
Corbin,
and then you can go.
please.
It's a one sentence
Okay, go ahead,
question.
buddy.
Can you name a single act of violence
Mhm.
that has occurred as a result of the January 6th pardon?
Yeah, can you name me the election that they would try again to do? What general election they would actually
Answering
have the
question with a
attempt?
question.
No, because you got to understand that you're saying the litmus test for this is, well,
I've
if you
got
put the
that
bail
answer.
fund in the middle of the riots when there's another opportunity to do the riots, therefore you're encouraging it to happen again. And yet there is yet to be another opportunity to help Donald Trump overthrow the election, at least not until the midterms, if not the 2028 election. So they literally haven't had the opportunity yet, but somehow this doesn't indicate that they might try again, even though they're completely now innocent of all crimes that they did on the day that they did it.
So-
They
so
haven't had the opportunity to try again. How does this at all map 1-to-1?
So it's an argument of the gaps. It's just
Do
like
you not,
I can't
don't,
demonstrate
can you
it,
understand
but in the future, maybe.
if you can't literally overthrow an election because there isn't one, how could they possibly try again? What election are they going to go overthrow right now?
Wait a second. I thought you just got done saying that Gavin Newsom was saying that he was going to run for a third term. And that
so
when he ran
at
for
the
third
very
term,
least, the next
what he
general
could do
election would
was
be
he could-
2028,
he could
Andrew.
get
So they
J.D.
can't go
Vance.
overthrow an election
Hey,
in
before we
2025
get
because it's
too
not
far
fucking
away,
happening,
before-
dipshit.
Before this gets too far away, I want to mention this with John, because John asked who was pardoned by Trump that later committed a crime. I got a great one, actually. I have a story here. This is from The Guardian. It says authorities in Texas say they have captured a convicted U.S. Capitol attacker who was pardoned by Donald Trump at the start of his second presidency. Andrew Taki, 36, was arrested on Thursday in Leon County in connection with charges filed about 120 miles away in Houston for the January 6, 2021. He was, where is it here?
Are you talking about the guy who was arrested for child porn?
Yes, solicitation of a minor.
But again, if they're being consistent, they'll say that's bad. I would say that has nothing
Wait,
to
he
do
was
necessarily
soliciting a
with the pardon.
minor?
Yes.
What is it? So what does it have to do with anything then?
Well, that's my argument, but you guys are going off about this guy, who went out and killed a guy a year after the fucking riot happened, not immediately after, and has nothing to do with a political message and using it running away from that.
My argument was just this. If it's the case that just having those bail funds increases the chance of political violence, and the fact that you only see them on the left, you say yes, then we've already established a link. You can't establish back the other way.
Well, he just showed you a criminal that made more crimes happen after he was pardoned. The increase in crime happened post-pardon.
Yeah, he hasn't correlated that had actually.
He wouldn't have been able to commit the crime if he was in jail, Andrew. He did it because he was pardoned. What do you mean?
Was it political violence?
Yeah.
Was the guy stabbing someone political violence?
Was what?
Was the guy who stabbed someone, like the one example you brought up, was that political violence?
No, that wasn't political violence.
I want to be very clear. Taki also was he assailed police with bear spray and a metal whip on the day he and other Trump supporters descended on Congress. So this wasn't somebody, by the way,
okay,
he was like just there at the protest.
But I just want to point out though that then anybody who's released from prison, right, can attack somebody, and then we could just retroactively say, well, then you shouldn't have released him.
Well, no, Andrew, to be clear, I'm
like,
saying not that.
About?
I'm saying you would have to show some sort of political violence happening as an extension. And I agree that obviously there's probably a likelihood that if people think there are bail funds, they might go again and do it. But you guys can't even fathom in your head that if you get pardoned for trying to overthrow a general election, you might try again the next time there's an opportunity. But because there hasn't been one yet, well, I guess it can't happen. We'll just have to wait and see till 2028. It couldn't possibly happen. The likelihood couldn't possibly increase.
So just to make sure I got your argument correct, yes, you believe that bail funds likely do increase the likelihood of violence at these political events, but there's a potential future in which the now pardoned after years of prison January 6ers may attempt to do another overthrow, insurrection that you don't believe happened. Is that right?
All right, hold on. Let me frame it the way you did.
Yeah, is that right? No,
well, no, it's not right. No, it's not right. It's not.
There's no overthrow.
No, it's not right, Andrew.
Insurrection.
Here, let me phrase it because it's not right. You got a little things wrong. So you believe that Kamala Harris putting a bail fund for people who were just out where they weren't supposed to be and letting them go back out in the streets and protest peacefully is somehow equivalent to Donald Trump getting the people who think they did nothing wrong and actually were on there under explicit orders from him to their belief and saying, hey, this is okay and you can do it again. This is nothing. This is absolutely not going to promote political violence. But Kamala Harris releasing peaceful protesters. I mean, that's insane, Andrew. That's crazy.
I don't actually understand what that particular straw man has to do with my steel man.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'm sorry that I strawman you.
I was giving a steel man. You could have just disagreed with a steel man.
Dude, fuck off. That wasn't a fucking steel man.
It was. I was actually making sure I got your position
maybe if you
correct.
are so retarded that you couldn't possibly fathom that telling someone it's okay that you tried to overthrow the election and then they try again 8 years later, that's totally okay.
Do you want to have the
conversation
or not?
Are you going to admit that it is possible? Okay, well here, Andrew, because you just interrupted me.
And let me just ask you.
Well, you interrupted me. Can I finish my question?
I was in the middle of you can't interrupt.
I was in the middle of getting interrupted by you.
I interrupted your interruption.
Yeah,
I was talking and interrupted your interruption.
I'm interrupting your interruption right now, Andrew.
I'm sorry, I interrupted your interruption.
Corbin, can I finish my question?
Yeah. So you can ask your
Okay.
question. And then
My
but
question is-
here's the thing.
My
When I let you go through it,
Whoa, hold on, Corbin. I thought
I'm
I got
just
to
setting-
finish my
I
question.
just wanna make sure I'm setting
Corbin, can I
conditionals.
finish my question, Corbin?
I just want to
Corbin,
make sure
please.
that
Corbin,
after
I wanna
that
make
I
sure
can
I can finish
actually
my
answer.
question.
Yes,
Can I-
Andrew, you can answer after.
All right.
Okay, Andrew, you can finish.
Soy,
Okay,
yeah.
so when I say, yeah, it's probably likely that there's some increase of people that might do more rioting if they got a bail fund. That's obvious, and that's such an easy concession. But when I ask you, if someone is pardoned explicitly for the crime of trying to overthrow the election, it probably increases the likelihood that they might try again, knowing that the person who might benefit from them overthrowing the election would pardon them again. You cannot say yes to that. Is that true?
Yeah, this is actually correct. But why? Can you give me the why behind it?
No, why don't you give me the why, Andrew?
No, that's not how Steelman's work, stupid. Tell
I'm
me
asking a
why
question.
I
I'm
hold
not
the
steelmanning you.
position.
I'm asking you a question. Please answer it.
No. Okay. So yes, these are not comparable. You're talking about a distinction of 4 years in prison.
There's no general election for them to
All right,
overthrow.
I thought I was going to
Andrew.
be allowed to answer the question.
Oh my
No?
God.
Yeah, so let Andrew.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so these are not comparable. When you're talking about bail funds just being present, you
Mhm.
can't point to anything on the right which is like this. You've conceded this point, demonstrating that yes, not only is the left committing violence, but is also setting up organizations in which to bail people out when they're
Mhm.
part of this. The reason that you guys keep on saying, for instance, most of these arrests happen in curfew. Well, yeah, they sweep them off the street because most violence happens after fucking curfew. That's why they're sweeping them off the fucking streets. That's one. The second aspect here, which makes no sense to me at all, they spent years in prison. Clearly, the people broadly must think that there was a massive injustice which happened here because Donald Trump got elected again. It's not like I'm in some like marginal tinfoil hat conspiracy bubble. Most people seem to agree that, wait a second, something seriously wrong happened with the prosecutions of these people in J6. They re-elected the fucking guy, and
This
he
is
won
a
the
great
popular vote
appeal
on top.
to all
Calm
of my
down, calm
retard
down.
fucking base, by the way.
I thought I
all
was
of my base is
Still
retarded,
still not
so
allowed.
it's
Still
okay.
not allowed to
That's awesome,
answer.
buddy.
Still not allowed to
Sorry.
answer.
Let
Right?
Andrew
Okay.
finish,
So anyway,
and then you respond.
the thing that's really funny here is like they're not comparable at all. Having that 4-year prison, so you always omit that. They had 4 years in fucking jail before the pardon. You think that doesn't act as a deterrent, and then you say, "Well, wait a second, no more election can even happen." Then what the fuck is Gavin Newsom talking about? How Trump's going to stay for a third seat and how he's going to accomplish that? He's just going to deploy the military, declare himself the king of the fucking United States? Like, what are you even talking about here, man?
Okay, so thank you for admitting your entire base is fucking retarded and that you didn't understand my point. The point is there has not been an election for them to try and overthrow. They were in prison for 4 years because Donald Trump was not president and could not pardon them for those 4 years. As soon as he gets in power and as soon as he has the ability to, he gets them out. And now, if there is another election in 2028, they would very likely at least just admit that they might try again in the next election, which could happen. And then Donald Trump might say, hey, I pardoned you once for this. It's very likely that I'll pardon you again for it. Why the fuck wouldn't they try again?
Because they don't want to spend another 4 years in prison.
If it works this time, the only reason they did that is because it didn't work.
Andrew,
Why is nobody ever allowed to actually answer the question you ask? It's very likely that if there's a deterrent of, the federal government's going to fucking persecute you if you even show up. If you don't even commit violence, right? They're going to persecute you and throw your ass in fucking prison.
If you
lose. By the
lose.
way, they had 4 years. This was the most investigated. I believe that this was the largest U.S. investigation in history. I mean, you can chat GPT that. I think that that's the case. The largest in history. You think we don't have the facts on it at this point, and that the president and his Justice Department can't go through the facts before they give these pardons, and he was swept in by popular vote. It appears that there could have been some injustice going on there. I'm just not willing to accept your narrative that when you say, I don't agree that this was actually an insurrection. Okay, I don't either. And so the thing is what's really funny is these guys get put away for 4 years. You think they're going to go back out and try a second time. Yeah, fucking right, dude. Yeah, fucking right.
Okay, so to be clear, you're
I
super
also wanna
logically
mention, but
inconsistent.
4 years
You're
for
ignoring the
assault
fact
is a
that these
very
people...
long
hold
time.
on, one at a time.
Go ahead, John.
Soy, and then John.
Okay, cool. So you're completely ignoring the fact that these people are dead to rights, convicted of like trying to overthrow the government. The reason I don't want to hang on the insurrection point is because I know you love playing the definition game there, and it's not really worth it. We can see what they tried to do. They tried to steal the election for Donald Trump, and once he had the power to pardon them for it, their plans. I'm sorry. Why is no one ever allowed to finish a point, Andrew? I'm sorry.
So it was an insurrection?
Everyone else.
So to be clear,
what I
they
finished.
tried to overthrow the election, and Donald Trump pardoned them for that. And you're so incapable of admitting that maybe people who realize that, hey, if we were successful and Donald Trump had become president, he would have pardoned us right away, or we wouldn't even gone to jail in the first place. That's so beyond the pale for you. Couldn't possibly conceive of it. But when I say, yeah, maybe some people who looked at a bail fund might say, well, I don't have to worry nearly so much about crime, I'm being so fucking good faith in granting you that when you still haven't established that any people that rioted did it because of a bail fund. I'm just saying, it's probably likely, but you're incapable of admitting that maybe someone pardoned for a crime might try to do it again in a way that gets their guy elected so that he pardons them again or they never go to jail. It's so fucking easy to follow this A to B to C.
When it comes to the realm of logical possibility, and grant almost anything, it's logically possible Superman could exist, for instance. We're talking about cases of likelihood, right? What I saw was Nick Fuentes distance himself from Trump after J6. I saw a lot of the prominent people who were there afterwards distance themselves. I don't want anything to do with this guy. And a lot of the people who were released, were very mad at Trump. They were very upset with Trump. They thought they should have gotten a pardon on his way out the door. It does not actually seem as though these people are going to be willing to show up to overthrow any fucking election or that they ever did in the first place. And by the way, let's point this out, that you just lied about your position on insurrection twice, right?
No, I was very clear that I granted that we'll just have the same definition of insurrection, so we don't have to go through the nitty-gritty of it.
I promised John Paul that he could respond.
So the insurrection, right, point, when I asked you, was it an insurrection?
I said, let's say no.
No.
I said, let's say no. To make this conversation
no.
go further, let's say no. Yeah.
You said no. No, you didn't say for the sake of the conversation. You just lied about your position.
I said, let's say no,
hiding it.
and I'm saying you in parentheses for the sake of the conversation, because the implicit thing is we're not going to get bogged down on a fucking
well, let me just ask this.
But
was it an insurrection or not?
Let's say no for the sake of the conversation.
No, your actual position.
I'm not trying to bog it down. I want to know the answer. Let's say no, because it's not really worth fighting over.
Was it an insurrection or not?
Let's say no.
So you got nothing, you fucking lying sack of gutless.
Let's say no. I'm not lying. I'm saying let's say no for the sake of the conversation.
Yeah, but I don't lie.
Andrew and Soy, I promised John Paul that he could respond.
Okay, so there's a lot that needs to be addressed here, because I think, Soy, you're missing or just outright avoiding all the points that we're bringing up. So I'm willing to grant, and I do grant, actually, that if Donald Trump pardoned people who you can confirm committed violent crimes and did that during like a time of insurrection on the Capitol or violence, that could potentially lead to more violence. But
so only during the insurrection would it be leading to more violence?
Let's say yes for the sake of argument.
Yes, let's say yes. Let's
say yes.
No, that's what you're saying. I'm not saying that.
What we're saying.
No, let's say it for the sake of argument, though.
Well, I don't agree with this argument, though.
Oh, I don't agree with you not agreeing with the argument.
No, why?
Let's just say for the sake of argument, we'll hide all of what we actually think about things from now on, Soy.
Is the definition of insurrection prevalent to debate right now?
So here's the thing.
I'm not asking. Did I ask for a definition of insurrection?
No, I'm just asking.
We don't know enough about each individual case to make a claim regarding the pardons. But so we're just assuming that he pardoned someone who actually committed a crime.
No, we're not. Actually, Vince brought up a specific example for you, John, and you said, well, actually, the violence afterward, I guess it doesn't matter.
Points. Okay. Here,
I like to jump in at some point, by the way.
What Andrew was bringing up, which is very important, is the concept of deterrence. When people spend time in jail, and they spend time in jail, that acts as a deterrent. I'm not going to go and step foot even close to the Capitol if I know that people who just standing there recording the building on the outside were given years and years of jail time, let alone actually trespass and assault officers.
Okay, by your standard, can you show me one violent criminal who was released on bail immediately after the BLM thing?
For the sake of argument, I can tell you 5.
Okay, show me them. For the sake of argument, I'm going to ask for all 5 of them.
Back and forth a little bit.
Kamala Harris, when she put out the bail fund, that was during the riots.
Yep.
People can see that, and they could reasonably commit more crimes.
Yep. Okay. So as long as the crime happens within a longer time, it's okay, right?
Here's
it's okay if the crime happens 8 years later, even if they were encouraged over the course of 8 years. That's fine.
No, that's not.
It's not okay.
You're not encouraged. By the way, 4 years for assault. That's a long time.
What if they thought they weren't going to get another 4 years, buddy?
The maximum you get for a misdemeanor assault most of the time is a year.
Well, it's a felony assault, so it's not a misdemeanor. That's a little different.
And their felony assault is generally up to 7 years. 4 years.
It can be up to 20 sometimes if it's with a deadly weapon, actually. I didn't ChatGPT that. I Googled it.
I don't think people want to spend any time in jail.
Would you lie to us
can't
about
be in
that,
Google,
though?
by the way, Soy.
We're
I haven't
talking
lied
we're
about
making a point
anything.
about we're making a point about
No, but for the sake of argument, I might grant you
probability.
something. For example, that Kamala
Okay,
Harris
there's two
specifically
things.
might
There's
be
a point
promoting
about
violence
probability,
because I'm
and
good
then
faith
there's a
enough to
point
do
about
that.
linking
You're
the
capable of doing the
actual cases.
same.
Can I finish real fast?
Yeah, go ahead.
Point about probability. The probability of someone counting on the fact that in 4 years their president is going to get elected again and pardon them makes it extremely unlikely that they're actually going to commit another act of violence.
Okay.
When
What percentage would you put on that, John?
in the middle of a riot, people are going to think I can escape this potentially, and that
What
is
percentage?
going to make it more probable to commit violence.
How many people?
The other thing is
What
the
percentage?
linkage between these violent
How many
acts. We
people?
made a
Dude,
condition.
why can't this guy
that you
even make
need
his
to link.
case? Dude?
Because
Just
he's like
calm
talking
down.
out of his ass about points that he's not even addressing on my
so
side.
I
So
talk-
I'm going to
here's
go
the
and try to
probability.
jump in and
I
try to
gotta
counter
make
the
some-
points when he says them.
Just John Paul finish.
He's been super
Soy.
respectful to you. At least let him make his case.
That's fair. He has
No,
been.
let's just let.
I
I'm
got-
going to
I
take you
got
out for a beer, John.
John, go.
All right, so there's a link. The other point, other than probability, is the point about linkage. So we have given the condition that when you're talking about responsibility for political violence, there has to be a link between the act and the violence. We demonstrated a direct link between Kamala Harris posting bail fund and rioters committing acts of violence.
You have not demonstrated that yet.
There's not a case where as a result of the pardons that people have committed more political violence as a result of the pardons.
You still have not
haven't made
demonstrated
that
the case that this
So
bail
there's-
fund
you
caused
have
people
two
to do
issues.
more political
Your
violence.
only
Please
argument is
demonstrate
about
that.
potentiality. Your only argument
Please
is about
demonstrate it.
potentiality. That
Demonstrate the link.
potentially in 4 years, if JD Vance or Donald Trump or whoever's running for president doesn't get elected, then probably there's a potential for people to form an insurrection and overthrow the government. Probably some people will commit violence because they're probably counting on the fact that in a number of years, there will be a president of their liking that gets elected again and pardons them. That's a completely outrageous point. Your only point is predicated on that point, which is completely false. And secondly, you actually have to show a linkage between violence that actually occurred, which we have, and you have not.
Can you show the link between Kamala Harris's bail fund and people going out and doing more political violence? Because you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, rioters.
You can't just say rioters. You have to show that her bail fund encouraged rioters to go out and do more political violence. You got to show me that. No, you didn't. I granted that it was likely that it might happen. You
made the concession.
Okay. So when I grant you the modicum of good faith that says maybe,
it was
it's not a grant. It's a concession.
No, it was a concession.
Oh, it's a concession. So it definitely
You're conceding the point because it's true.
Okay, it's definitely true. Sorry, I concede. I concede. It's totally true. Sorry.
Yeah, if it's true. Right, there's a difference between it's likely versus it did. If it did, then there should be something that you guys can point to say.
Actually, this is actually a good point. So you're right. We're talking about likelihoods, and so when I asked Soy, do you think that the likelihood drastically increases when you have a bail fund? He says, yeah, it does. Of course, it makes sense. Hang on, it makes sense. Wait, hang on, calm down.
I got 2 words out, by the way, before you just jumped in. Like,
you just asked me a question. Like, why do you guys ask me questions and then when I start answering them, you get upset?
I didn't ask you a statement. I said.
Okay, go ahead.
I said that there is a difference between likelihood and that something did happen, and that if you guys say that something did happen, in fact, that you guys should be able to provide something to back up that claim. And that is something that I feel like you guys have not done. And again, reiterating my opening statement that you guys have fully proven is that anytime we bring this up, you guys deflect. You'll say that it's some other kind of issue. You will not take responsibility for the fact of what you guys do. But when it's the left, you guarantee it wouldn't take any modicum of evidence. You could just see that like you said before already, by the way, you could see a word on a bullet case and automatically go, yep, that's the case. But I guarantee you, if it was somebody on the right, you guys would not sit there and you guys would have all sorts of just like, well, wait a minute, guys. Hey, he might have PTSD. Oh, he might have had trouble with his marriage. But you guys would never, ever, ever grant that amount of courtesy to anybody on the left.
Well, here's the thing. It's really funny, right? It's like, I don't know why you think it is that our faculties go out the window. When it comes to this stuff, like I think a tranny fucker who fucking puts out, oh, hey, fascist catch. I think we can put 2 and 2 together there, right? I think we can put it together.
I don't know what you can put together.
Really jumped in. Shut up. It's my Vince's exchange. I know, Vince, that upsets you that we were able to call that correctly because it was very simple to do based on the circumstances of what was going on with that particular case. But the funny part here is like, I don't even
I mentioned J6.
Actually, I actually don't even understand the ultimate criticism. If we're talking about likelihoods, then all we're doing is making the same comparison that you're trying to. We're saying that the likelihood here, if it's the case that you have bail funds, you make the concession, of course, that the bail funds are there, that is going to increase the amount of people on the ground, thus increasing political violence. Versus, do you think that it's likely that people who spent years in prison after a pardon they didn't even know that they were going to get is going to somehow increase the likelihood that there's going to be another example of J6? You also say that we're running away from responsibility or somehow deflecting. And yet, when asked directly, do we condemn any violence which happened on J6? We both said yes, and so did Trump.
Okay.
Not only are we not deflecting,
we're taking a one-to-one example.
Vince's exchange. Calm down, Soy. The thing is like, how many concessions can we possibly make in good faith
Apparently
and
zero.
demonstrate this for you? And by the way, let's just assume for a second we never did. We never, ever took responsibility for anything. The fuck does any of that have to do with whether or not the left commits more violence or not? What? Even if I deflected from everything and doubled down and said Trump's the man, he should have overthrown the fucking government. Even if I said that shit, Vince, what the fuck does that have to do with whether or not the left commits more violence?
Well, we moved on from that, Andrew, because you were unable to accept the data and didn't have data of your own that countered ours. So.
Well,
Very scientific.
So okay, here's a more one-to-one example that you guys will maybe accept. I doubt it. I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it, but I do want to ask you that real quick. So when Donald Trump says, "I think we should find the guy," I think we should find the guy who roughed up that protester in my what?
Soy, seriously.
Let Vince fucking have his exchange. You calm down.
Okay, go ahead, Vince.
Twirl your fucking propeller or something for a second.
Okay, I got a stim.
What did you want to say to Andrew?
Yeah, I'm just
sorry. I think it has a lot to do with it. Again, if the right refuses, and again, going back to my opening statement, because I love to reference that, is that again, in the absence of condemnation from the right, and you guys may condemn it, that's fine. But the vast majority of people that I have engaged with and that I have seen online don't necessarily condemn it outright. And the most that I have seen have done otherwise. And so in the absence of
That's exactly.
This is why I got to interrupt Vince.
I can go. I'm sorry, dude. My internet sucks. You can look at the left. When you look at the left, or the right.
Now, who on the right didn't condemn violence? They all condemn violence, as far as I saw.
Okay, so
let me ask you something. Let me ask you. Since you talked about dog whistles, if Gavin Newsom said, "I condemn this rhetoric," and then goes in and then pardons or bails out, because you guys have already said this implicitly with Kamala Harris, then bails out all of those people that protested, would you still say that Gavin Newsom condemned and that he condemned the rhetoric? Would you say that same thing?
No,
because
we're
you
going in
seem to not be doing that
circles.
with Kamala Harris. In fact, you were saying quite the
I
opposite.
understand what
with
you're
Kamala
saying.
Harris.
You're saying, so like if this something equivalent of J6 happened in California, and then Gavin Newsom decided that he would go ahead and pardon all these people after they did 4 years in fucking prison, would you agree that he condemned the violence the day after? Yeah, probably.
I don't believe it, but
that's nice. An argument from incredulity. Andrew, I don't believe you. That's nice.
Yeah.
Okay, so my question is, if Donald Trump were to say, "Hey, I will pay the bail funds for people who assault protesters at my things," and that's in the middle of protesters doing things in his rallies, would you say that might be encouraging?
You mean that gotcha where he was being tongue in cheek? It was very clever.
Oh, he was joking. Okay, so even in the most one-to-one example, it was a joke. You know what? I think Kamala Harris was just like, "LOL bail funds." LOL bail funds. I think bail funds are pretty fucking funny.
LOL bail funds.
Bail funds are funny, dude. I think they're hilarious. I'm gonna go retweet a bail fund now.
Can you show me the actual bail fund? It was a clever gotcha, but it didn't work.
It's a pretty fun meme to retweet bail funds. I'm gonna go do it right
there
now.
is a Patriot Legal Fund. There's a Patriot Legal Fund that's helping pay for legal fees of all of those who are on January 6th. They're also helping pay for some of their family.
Funds for protesters then. So not that.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, Andrew. I could have sworn you said these don't exist on the right, and he just brought up a couple that definitely exist on the right.
That's not a fucking protester bail fund. You lying.
Oh, they're not protesters. What would you call them then?
Who? No. The J6ers are people who are being politically persecuted. This is long after.
Dude, if you didn't smoke and you weren't so fucking fat, it'd be easier to lift the goalposts and move them around. Dude. Jesus Christ, dude. Holy shit.
This was long after. You should use those dick-sucking lips of yours.
Oh my
God.
Go ahead
and actually make the case.
Hey, girls love these. You should ask your wife.
Make the case Make the actual case.
Oh,
Ask my wife.
doesn't it suck when people yell at you and you get all flustered and your
sorry.
masculinity just disseminates?
Yeah.
You start to feel all that
Yeah.
sexual anxiety, Andrew. Are you thinking about all the other men your wife fucked and had kids with, dude? Is it happening?
If you want to troll, let's troll. Is that what
Hey,
we
Soy.
do?
No, it's
Hey,
not.
Soy, look, I think Soy.
Are we just going to do trolling? If you want to do that, we can do that.
I think it's the pickle behind you that's got him a little flustered.
Olive.
I didn't even think of that. Holy shit.
Olive.
Oh, check this out.
Jesus Christ. Okay, we're gonna throw.
Do you keep one? Do you keep one by you just in case? Now, do you have someone else loosen up?
We're gonna kick it over to John Paul now.
I mean, here's the thing, though, Soy. Like, if you want to have legitimate
Andrew,
debate,
I just said we're gonna kick it to
I
John.
don't give a shit. Here's the thing, Soy.
Wow, Corbin,
If
you're
we're gonna
really
if
letting
we're
Andrew
just
walk
gonna
over you
do-
there. That's pretty
If we're
crazy.
just gonna do, if we're just
I
gonna
don't
do
like playing
trolling,
favorites.
Okay,
now we're
I
doing
will mute-
trolling.
I will mute everyone. We're kicking.
Now
it to
we're
John.
now we're just doing
We're
trolling,
kicking
bro.
it to John Paul.
No. Now
this
we're
is
gonna
not
do
the
some
setting
trolling.
to just me.
No. We
John.
must do trolling now.
We're kicking it to John.
We have to do trolling now. John's not allowed to talk anymore.
Nobody's
Nobody's allowed
tired
to
of
talk.
moving
We're
goalposts. We gotta
just
troll now,
doing
guys.
trolling now.
All right, John Paul.
Nobody's allowed to speak. He's allowed to insult my wife. Right? He's allowed to
Hey,
do
you're the
that.
one who called her a 6, dude. I just monkey see, monkey do. All right.
Hey, when your fucking family's doxing's up online, don't get mad at me. You opened it up. You opened it up.
Sure.
You opened that shit up.
Sure.
And the thing
Yeah.
is funny is like,
I will-
wait, hang on,
We
Soy,
did it
was
first.
that-
Just like
was
the
that
Proud
due-
Boys, you're just playing self-defense.
was that due to your rhetoric?
Was what, dude?
Did you bring it on yourself with your rhetoric? By the way, we don't do. By the way,
I think
never.
the insults were
By
brought
the way,
to
we
you when
never
you called
do.
me
By the way, we never do.
doxing. I waited till
I'm just
then,
pointing
to
this
be
out
clear.
to you. I'm just pointing
I'm
this
pointing
out
out that you are an incredibly weak man baby who postures as super masculine, but the instant someone insults you, you get flustered and feel like a little bitch.
No,
and
you're just
so
filibustering.
clearly,
You're not-
so clearly
your
upset about
insults-
it, and now you're
your
like,
insults
you're
are
being
shit.
really mean to me, and
Your
like,
insults are
it's
dog
fucking
shit.
embarrassing, dude.
You wear a propeller on your fucking head.
Yeah, and
You're a
you
fucking
yourself has
doofus.
said, hey, he does it as a joke, but now that you think you can use it as
Hang
an
on.
insult, you're
Can
trying
we-
so hard. You're
Can you
grasping.
tell me-
Go
can you
fucking
tell-
smoke another
Can you
cigarette.
tell me why
dude.
your
Just
live
accelerate
streams
it,
only
dude.
have 4,000 on them, and your
because
other streams have
people
have
subscribe to me for
yeah.
video essays. They don't give a shit about
Yeah,
this.
it's
This
really
is a
weird.
fucking
It's almost
dog
like
and
you're
pony show,
lying.
buddy.
It's almost like you're lying about. Yeah, I think you're botting your channel. You want to talk
You
about
think I'm
that?
botting, dude? Why would
Yes.
I bot to have 200 fucking people, dude? You think I go on these live streams that make
I
me
don't
no money
understand.
and I pay
Yeah.
for them? You're fucking insane.
Exactly.
Dude.
That's what's
Now I
weird.
think
How do you
you might
have
be botting.
200,000 plus views on some of your videos?
Because
A
people
lot of your
watch me for
videos.
things that aren't this. Because this is
But you
fucking
don't make
dog
any
shit.
fucking money.
You
You
call
make
this is
zero
your
money.
life. You try to market yourself selling debate for some reason, even though you're dog shit at it. And you
I
come
don't know, I
out
beat
here
you
and
every
you're like,
time.
guys, this is my whole fucking life. Debate is awesome. On your birthday, instead of spending time with your family, you
if you were good
debated
at
for the whole
debate,
day.
then why
I
won't you
go out,
debate?
I make video essays, and then I go live a fucking life. So yeah, my fucking audience doesn't like this shit. It's awful, and I tell them I'm sorry. All the descriptions are like, I'm so sorry you have to watch this absolute dog shit. You love it. In any other situation, you'd be a fat, overweight construction worker who dies of a heart attack at 45.
know.
But thank God that you have the fucking internet and a bunch of retards think you're fun to listen to, so now you can make money doing something else. It's embarrassing. You're
Anything
a fucking
else?
embarrassment of human beings.
Is there anything else, Soy?
I have a lot more to say to
How's
you. if you
that?
want me
How's
to.
that apartment treating you?
It's actually pretty nice, actually. It's,
I don't
got a
know.
good view
I'm
of
about
the
to move
city.
into a $1.4 million house. And
Yeah,
that's pretty
again,
fucking
I
nice too.
agree. You've
That's
demonstrated
pretty
multiple
fucking nice
times
too.
you've got a MAGA
Oh.
audience of a bunch of retards who also
Woo.
love giving money to people who
Hey,
think they can. I've seen
enjoy-
the people
enjoy
that
the
get coached
propeller
by
hat.
you.
Enjoy the
Speakeasy,
fucking
no
propeller
Fugazi.
hat, bro.
These people are fucking awful
Enjoy the fucking
because they'll
propeller
listen
hat.
to you and you have nothing to offer them. You're so bad. I don't know why you self-admit to being low IQ.
Hey.
Why not just say you're smart? At least
Hey.
then they'll have a masculine figure to look
I don't
up
know
to.
what to. Hey, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry that I make so much money online and you're seethingly jealous.
I'm
So
not- hey,
I'm sorry.
That's the one thing you've said that's correct. I wish I made as
sorry.
much money as you, but unfortunately, I can't be as stupid.
I can't even. You can't even imagine how much I'm making right now while
I
you're
can imagine
filibustering the debate.
I can totally imagine it.
I know, but dude, you really can't.
No, I'm
It's so
I'm trying
much
right
more
now.
than you.
I'm
it's so
actually
much
able
more
to
than you
project
think.
even 8 years into the future when I'm making a lot of money.
You're not ever going to make
When
any
the
money
next
online.
election happens, and I'll just
Because
be
you can't
rolling
do-
in
you
it.
can't
I'll have a
debate, you just
Scrooge
troll.
McDuck vault full of
You don't
coins and
even
bills. It'll
debate,
be
you
amazing.
just troll.
And I can imagine the election too. It's so
Look at this
easy.
debate. So who do you think's going to come and debate with you again?
Dude, and no one ever debated with me, you realize I get to focus all the time on the things I want to do and not the things that you love doing.
Then
on your
why
birthday,
is it?
dude.
Why is it that you wanted to do this debate then?
I actually did. You know, it's so funny. Corbin, I was going to be super nice to him. He reached out and he was super sweet. And he said, "You're the first person I asked." And then the next day he said, "And Andrew Wilson's confirmed." I said, "Jesus Christ, do I have to talk to this fucking retard for another 3 hours?" But I didn't want to be mean to Corbin. And John, I just want to say, you've been incredibly respectful. And I actually am. I know you're at UC Berkeley. I'll go out. I'll take you to lunch. And I think you can be saved because you're not stupid. You really are. You've demonstrated actually, at least in some integrity and the ability to like process a logical argument, even if I think you're completely wrong. So, you know,
you don't know anything about
week.
logic. You're the worst at it. And by the way, if you were good and skilled at debating, why wouldn't you just keep debating? Why do you have to control the debate?
Stupid. This accomplishes nothing. You're unable to conceive even the littlest amount of thing. The only thing this is for is your retard audience.
You
for some reason hops into mine. By the way, you accuse me of botting. Half these fucking people are your guys in here like, Andrew Wilson, W, buddy. This is so great because they're so fucking insecure that if they're not constantly declaring wins like you, they have to come do it over here and think that, oh, now we won.
Have I ever attacked your family once?
No, because you don't know my family, but I'm sure you try.
No, because I wouldn't. I just don't do it.
You wouldn't attack my family.
Don't do it.
Oh, good gracious Andrew, kind Andrew. He's just the nicest guy out there. Guys, I want to go look at all the clips of Andrew being so nice. He's just the most good faith, kind person. He's always reaching out to people. Yeah. He's trying to build bridges. He's never done anything awful, misogynistic, or awful to all these other women.
Name something I've done awful to somebody.
No, you're right, Andrew. I think you're the paragon of beautiful,
Can you tell me what I've done awful to somebody or not?
Behavior, and it's so amazing.
Yeah,
and you know, anytime anything comes at you, it's just because they hate you and you're good debating and logic. It's so fucking awful, Andrew. I don't know why everyone's so mean to you. I don't know why. I don't know why I'm so mean to John. You know, why wouldn't I give him the say? Why don't I insult John's family? It's probably because John is not nearly so much of a piece of human garbage.
You're not a serious debater. I don't know what to tell you.
Are you telling me not? How dare you call me not serious, Andrew?
The thing is,
this is your job. You're talking to this fucking retard and you're bragging about it. Like, I'm happy for you that you're making all this money, but to come out here and say I'm not a serious person, this is your fucking life. Look who you're talking to. I do this for fucking fun. This is your career.
And that's exactly why you're going to keep on working at the fucking low tier factory you're at, I'm sure. The thing is, so is with Corbin, and here's the thing, it's funny. I came out to help his channel. I told him the last debate I would.
Very kind of you.
And so I did. I came out and did exactly that. But the thing is like, never forget that you're a low tier fucking troll, and you could have had a great debate here, and you just chose not to.
Yeah, it's all me, buddy.
This was all you.
Well, you know what? I appreciate all of you fine gentlemen coming out and giving me a slice of your clout. I really appreciate that.
I don't got no clout. All right, look, I'm trying, but I ain't got.
You're more clout than I am, Vince. All right, you got to give yourself some credit. I'm not like the.
I will say, I mean, now that we're kind of winding down a little bit, I mean,
yes, we were winding. This is winding down.
I know this is like this is winding down. I will say, I mean, just on the top. Oh, I'll let you go ahead.
So we are closing in on the 3-hour mark. I don't know if any of you gentlemen have a hard out. I can keep going for a bit, but it seems like we've derailed a good bit. How do we kind of want to proceed?
Yeah, I'm good with closing statements.
All right.
Yeah.
Everyone else good?
That's fine.
Alrighty, then Mr. Soypill, where can people find you, and give yourself a closing statement?
Yeah, I'm a low-tier factory worker, the Soy Pill. I do video essays on YouTube, but don't go check those out because I need to fail out and pursue my real career of whatever the fuck it was going to be otherwise. I wanted to come here and talk about the rhetoric of our politicians and how blatantly obvious it is that the right wing is refusing to condemn anything. And while I would not put this onus on John or Andrew, despite Andrew's reach, I think it's very clearly a demonstration of what those Republican politicians do, which is deflect, excuse every single time. There's never, ever a modicum of responsibility for when their side and their rhetoric does something awful. You can ignore the study if you really want to, but I promise you if you go through it, yeah, you're going to find some things that you might say, maybe that belongs here, that belongs there. But until they provide some sort of study that shows that actually the left wing is overall doing it and not declare, well, it's because of these videos I saw and it just kind of feels like more are happening, I'm going to go ahead and say that probably the right wing is doing it more. And I'll even concede, look, it seems like the left wing's doing it more this year, and that's not good. I condemn it. It shouldn't happen. But guess what? The right wing's being super fashy. So that don't justify violence against them. But I mean, if you literally go on the HUD.gov right now, the radical left are going to shut down the government and inflict massive pain rain on all American people, according to the current Trump administration. It's always the entire left's fault. It justifies everything that's ever done to them. He's going to pardon them. He's going to do awful things. And hey, when it gets really, really bad, maybe we will have to do some, boogaloo stuff. But I don't think we need to get there. I think we can have peaceful elections and fight back against this really well. So thank you for having me, Corbin. Andrew, it was fun. I know the insults go back and forth. I don't know why your wife's off the table when, clearly she's in the debates with us. I would never go after your children. I hope they live prosperous, beautiful lives. John, I will take you out to lunch. I'm sorry. This is my closing statement, Andrew. Just hold it in. I know it's hard. You have very low inhibitions. But yeah, John, hit me up on Twitter or something. I'll take you out to lunch out in Berkeley or something. So.
All right, Mr. John Paul Leon. Where can people find you, and what's your closing statement?
All right. So first of all, I just do want to thank everyone for participating in this debate. I do think we did touch upon a lot of crucial aspects of the debate and conversation, which was very nice. People can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube primarily. Instagram and TikTok is where I have the most amount of stuff. YouTube, I just have like a single short there. Usually if you look up at john.paul.leon on Instagram and TikTok, you should find me. On YouTube, I'm John Paul Leon / Sharp Young Minds. And so I think regarding closing statements, I do want to say throughout this debate, I do want to emphasize the moral and clarity in the framework that we have set up. Again, political violence is never justifiable. And the key distinction that I made early on in my opening statement and throughout the debate was that the acts of violence from the right is committed by the fringe right, and it is always condemned on the mainstream level. The fringe right also doesn't have a strong ideological backing.
It's not a single part of it could possibly be our fault, guys.
Which is
just
also
be clear.
Fundamentally important.
I'm going to save this kid. Look how savable he is.
The distinction I made
we cannot let his neck be in front of TPUSA
is that the mainstream
events.
left often normalizes and excuses violence and is typically in unison with these movements. You have Black Lives Matter, anti-ICE riots, you have pro-Palestine movements, you have people getting indoctrinated, or I don't like to use the word indoctrinated, but I would say mobilized at university campuses, completely radicalized. You have pro-life journalists being punched. And in reality, our top leaders of the Republican Party are the ones who are being shot and killed when you don't see that same impact on the left. And that's why I wanted to draw out my other key distinction, which was the just pure scope of everything. When you look at the whole scope, the most damaging event of sustained political violence in the US history were the BLM and Antifa riots. You don't see that same amount of impact coming from the right. So frankly, if we were to analyze it based off of responsibility and political violence, there's many of these things that these studies don't classify, many things that they include that they shouldn't include. And overall, when we just see the total impact and influence and responses from both parties, we see that the Republican Party has always condemned it. My opponents will say that they have not condemned it, but they have not shown a single example throughout this entire debate. And you see all of the other things going on with the left and how they're refusing to condemn it, like Destiny not condemning the assassination of Charlie Kirk and the attempted assassination of Donald Trump. We can see that the situation is completely clear. The fringe right commits violence that we don't support. The Republican Party doesn't support. The mainstream left, it rationalizes, excuses, justifies, tolerates violence. And we see that has large-scale impact on the political landscape.
All right, Mr. Vince Wilson, give yourself a shout out. And yes,
I'm gonna try to do this without the internet hiccuping here.
All right.
First of all, yes, I'm the Vince Wilson Show. I do live streams. I do TikTok Shorts, YouTube Shorts. I said TikTok Shorts. And if it's not a dedication, yes, I'm traveling and I am doing my best to try to facilitate this debate. I do enjoy having these debates with everybody on here, so I appreciate everybody on here. To my closing statement, I just want to say I think it's hilarious to hear that it's the left that continuously deflects when all we have seen throughout this entire
not trying to
debate
favor
was the
Andrew,
right
but he's clearly letting him
continuously
walk all over him, which is fine.
How
it
anytime
happens.
we bring up an example of saying, "Hey,
think
look,
John's
here's
a
a
lost cause?
contradiction,"
We can get
it gets deflected. I think in my opening statement, I mentioned even that there was and to what I was trying to get at by this is saying that when the right deflects, it creates kind of this victim mentality where essentially when one side, the left particularly, says, "Hey, guess what? we condemn this. I pulled up numerous quotes from Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Nancy Pelosi. You got Chuck Schumer, who consistently condemn this rhetoric and hold it their own. They actually don't. They go through with the actual judicial process. But what we see is that the right will do this. We saw this recently with the Mormon incident, where they said it was PTSD, it was this or that. We saw with January 6th, where Andrew Wilson and we have seen where they sat there and said, well, there was no fund set up, but there was a fund, and then all of a sudden it didn't count. So what happens in this situation is when the right continuously deflects and they never take accountability, and the left does, it creates this idea that the left is the perpetrator. We've seen Donald Trump mention that the left is fascist, that the press is the enemy. We've seen where they talked about Stephen Miller, who's going out there and consistently using the same rhetoric. And time and time and time again, the right will use the same exact language. But because of the double standard, they don't hold their own to that same standard. They don't tell their own to stop using fascist and communist and Marxist when it may not even be necessarily need to be applied. But they don't hold their own to that same standard. And that is the issue at hand. So that's where I'll end my closing statement.
All right, Mr. Andrew Wilson, give yourself a shout out and your closing remarks.
Yeah, my name is Andrew Wilson, I'm the host of The Crucible. Obviously, by the way, and all of you guys here should know, I don't advocate for any type of doxing whatsoever, never have. I was using this as a rhetorical scale to show how you can escalate when it comes to rhetoric. So I've never done that to anybody, never going to, just pointing this out, that when somebody says it's on the table for you, for I can attack you, it's like, well, you see how that rhetoric will escalate. So, but anyway, that aside, right? And by the way, nobody here actually would think I would ever do anything like that,
Right, yeah.
nor instruct my audience to. But anyway, this aside, these guys got completely fucking murdered in this debate, and it was bad. And the problem is, they just keep saying,
forgot to
you
declare
won't
victory.
concede.
Fuck.
You won't concede on these various points. We don't have to concede on these points. It's not necessary because the points were in our favor. We stuck to the facts. When you try to take these two positions and then you try to meld them as though they have some equivalency, you're just incorrect. And we were able to point this out over and over and over again.
And even
And
when
we
we
were
brought
able
up
to
the
logically
Trump at the
demonstrate
rally
it
example,
over
it was a
and
joke,
over
guys.
and over again. Why do you think Soy got so pissed off that he started trolling at the end and literally filibustered the last half hour of the debate? Because these guys were so frustrated that they couldn't contend with the fact that we were able to point out examples of escalating left-wing violence, and all that they could come up with is, well, maybe in some future election somewhere, the people who were pardoned for J6, who spent years in jail during this witch hunt, might try to come back out and overthrow it. It's the most ridiculous argument that anybody's ever heard. And we have every reason to be skeptical of it when they make it and draw out that the parallel here doesn't really make sense. Also, it's not high-profile leftists or who are getting shot. It's high-profile right-wingers, including Trump. They tried to assassinate him too, and we all know that the likelihood of that happening again from a leftist extremist is probably pretty high. Nobody thinks it's not even these two people. So the problem is that when you stick to the facts, this is what ends up happening. They end up not conceding out of good faith. They end up conceding because when you ask them a logical question like, don't you think if there's a fucking bail fund, more people will show up? They say yes. Show us the equivalent on the right. They couldn't. All Vince could come up with is after J6, a fund was opened up for legal assistance. That's not a bail fund. These people are the worst, fucking most atrocious liars I've ever heard in my life. So thing is like, ultimately, point for point, that's why we end up taking the W. So with that, I appreciate it, guys. You know, that's the end of that. But it'll be the last time for us, Soy, unless you ever want to have an actual serious debate.
I don't know if it's
I just-
possible,
Alright,
but I
well,
appreciate
the
it.
whole idea of like, I'm just gonna come on, and then when you get frustrated, you just troll for fucking 40 minutes. I just don't have
Hey,
any
you
time.
started
for
with the
anymore.
dick sucking lips, man. I don't know what you want to say.
Nah. But anyway, go ahead.
Thank you everyone for joining. Big shout out to Andrew and Soy. You guys have literally infinite times more the audience than I do, so I really appreciate you coming and helping out and having fun on the channel.
Well,
As
never
far
forget,
as
you might be obscure right now, but in 3 years, you might be fucking the biggest thing who's ever existed. You never can tell how these things turn out. I'm
If-
always happy to assist people in their channel growth. I've always been really good about that. I don't care if they're right or left. if they have legitimate debates. I'm always happy to assist with that.
Yeah, man, I really do appreciate you guys coming out. And big shout out to the audience. We have 150 live viewers. That's almost the size of my channel. That is unbelievable. So everyone in the live section, thanks for coming out.
Are you on
make sure you
YouTube,
like
Corbin?
and sub.
We can raid into you.
Sorry?
Are you on? If you're on YouTube, we can raid into you too.
Oh yeah, I'm on YouTube right now. Corbin Sales. You can find me online at YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, and the like. Thank you everyone for my amazing guests tonight. Shout out to John and Vince as well. You guys all did fantastic.
Thank you.
Thanks
All
again.
right, thanks
Thank
for
you,
coming.